ESPN, the world's leader in motorsports coverage, presents Speed World. Today, live from Martinsville Speedway in Virginia, it's the Haynes 500 Winston Cup race. Partly cloudy skies here this afternoon. There's a 50% chance of rain, but it's warm and humid. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Bob Jenkins. Welcome to Martinsville as we conclude the first half of the 91 short track season. We've seen typical short track racing the past two weekends, but as we said, we've seen some drivers get back on the right track. As we take a look at the point standings, Ricky Rudd remains on top with a 5th and 11th place finish in the two short track races. Dale Earnhardt was second last weekend. Ernie Ehrman had a second at Bristol. Mark Martin had 2 top 10 finishes, and Darrell Waltrip won last weekend at North Wilkesboro, making him the 7th different driver to win in the first 7 races of the year. That hasn't happened since 1964. The 7 drivers back then, the 1970 champion, Bobby Isaac, the legendary driver and owner, Junior Johnson, IndyCar, Formula One, and Winston Cup pilot, Dan Gurney. The eventual champion in '64, the King, Richard Petty. Wendell Scott was a winner back in 1964, as was the great Fireball Roberts. And our own Ned Jarrett, who 27 years later is still a winner, this time on the broadcast team. Ned?
Well, Bob, those were the good old days, and certainly there was plenty of competition back then, but I don't think that I have ever seen as much parity as there is in the sport today. Now, certainly there are plenty of drivers who are capable of winning that are not among those 7 who have won so far. We could see another winner here today to make it 8 in a row. There's been a lot of beating and banging going on in the last couple of weeks on the short tracks. 36 cautions in just 2 races. Benny, what is going on?
Pressure, Ned. Nothing but pressure. And it's not a spoken pressure or an implied pressure. And the pressure is not to win. It's exposure. To get on this camera, to be seen on the television screen, to be written about. Because these fellas know to survive, they have to be seen on the TV screen. They have to be written about. That's the only way they're going to be here next year and the year after that. Jerry, who do you think we're going to see on camera today?
Benny, you're going to love this. We're going to see a lot of barbecued chicken today. Right, barbecued chicken. This Tyson Chicken Bullseye Barbecue Sauce Ford of Chad Little qualified 6th. 37-year-old Chad Little from Spokane, Washington. Chad, now last week you were nowhere to be found. Didn't make the field at Wilkesboro. This week you come back with your best ever effort. What's been the difference?
First of all, it was 27-year-old. I heard you say 37, Jerry. But I'll tell you what the difference is the field is so tight that, last week we were just off a little bit. We had a middle of the pack car. We ended up missing the field. This week we had a good car. It was a good lap, and things just turned out well. And, when there's only 0.3 of a second between first and last, it doesn't take much to miss it, I just like to say thanks to our sponsors, Tyson and Bullseye, and say hi to everybody back home in Spokane.
Well, he certainly said, and by the way, attorneys always correcting us doctors. Hey, you just can't get away from them. But let's go back up with a driver who's really getting on the right track. Standing by with John Kernan.
Tell you what, Jerry, you are exactly right. After the 3rd race of the season, a lot of people said, hey, where is Mark Martin? What has happened to him? Well, they just got off to another slow start, which has been typical the last couple of years for this team. But, Mark, you guys have got it really geared up right now, 4th in the points and starting the race from the pole position.
Well, the whole team is really fired up right now. We'd really like to win this thing for Folgers and Valvoline. But whatever happens today, the car's running great. The team's doing great. We're fired up. We're ready to go out and capitalize on what we've built the last 3 years. So we can't wait to get started.
Mark, ready to go. I'll tell you what, they're ready for this track, too. They have done a lot of testing here. In fact, 2 weeks ago, they spent 2 days trying a lot of combinations. Now let's go up pit road for the command to fire the engines.
All righty. Here is Steve Largent with the words we're waiting for. Now it's time. Gentlemen, start your engines.
Time in the 91 season, the drivers fire their engines and get set for competition. We'll go 500 laps this afternoon on this half-mile racetrack and end the short track season. As usual, a tremendous crowd on hand here, set to go. And watch the excitement here this afternoon at a track that has always given us plenty of short track action. Let's take a look now at the die-hard starting grid. Mark Martin will be the pole sitter. At 91.949 miles an hour, he's in the number 6 Folgers Ford. Outside row 1, it's Harry Gant in the Skull Bandit Oldsmobile, car number 33. Row number 2, Ken Schrader from Fenton, Missouri in the number 25 Kodiak Chevrolet. And outside the second row will be Rick Mast from Rockbridge, Bath, Virginia in the Skull Classic Oldsmobile number 1. Starting 5th, Rusty Wallace, car number 2, the Miller Genuine Draft Pontiac. And then Chad Little from Spokane, Washington in the Tyson Ford, car number 19. Dale Jarrett will start in 7th position. He's in the Sitco Ford, car number 21. And then the Hooters Ford, driven by Alan Kowicki, number 7. He's from Greenfield, Wisconsin. The 5th row consists of Ernie Irvin and Dale Earnhardt. Row number 6, it's Bobby Dillon and Richard Petty. Going to row number 7, Terry Labonte and Bill Elliott. Row number 8, we see Brett Bodine and Darrell Waldrop. Row number 9, it's Kyle Petty and Jeff Bodine going for 3 straight wins here in Martinsville. The 10th row, Joe Ruttman and Bill Sedgwick. Back to row number 11, Hut Strickland and Ricky Rudd, the Winston Cup points leader. 12th row, Sterling Marlin. He will start the car and go to the first caution, and Dick Trickle. The 13th row, it's Mickey Gibbs and Davey Allison. Row number 14, Blake Speed and Jimmy Spencer. And back in row number 15, we find Michael Waltrip and Ted Musgrave. Morgan Shepherd and Rick Wilson are the provisional starters for this afternoon's Haynes 500. Those who failed to qualify, Derek Cope, Bobby Hamilton, Jimmy Means, Dave Marcus, and J.D. McDuffie. However, there was no second round qualifying here yesterday, and so those guys actually didn't get a chance to get into the starting lineup. 32 cars are lined up on the front stretch, getting set to go here in just a moment. Let's take a look at the racetrack here at Martinsville. 0.526 miles in length. The pole speed was 91.949, the slowest oval the Winston Cup race is on. The time 20.59 seconds. Will go 500 laps, and the field is separated by just a little over 0.6 of a second. There you can see there are pit areas on both the front stretch and the back stretch here at Martinsville. We have long straightaways and tight corners, and the turns are banked at 12 degrees between turns 1 and 2. Over in the 3rd and 4th turns, also 12 degrees of banking, and the straightaways are flat. So that's the course that they'll be competing on here this afternoon. The cars still warming up their engines here on the main straightaway. It's a warm and humid afternoon, but they have yet to pull away for a couple of warm-up laps.
We see the two car. See the 2 car sitting there, Rusty Wallace. He told me just a bit ago that Roger Penske called this morning and said, hey, I want to come see a short track race. I haven't seen one in years live. I've been picking me up the airport. So Roger is here.
Well, it's always an exciting one here. And we're talking about the back pits here. There are some big, heavy names back there. Jeff Bodine being one of them. This one here, 2 races in a row here. That's going to be a disadvantage. We'll talk more about that as the race goes on.
All right, now the field does begin to move away, and in just a moment, we will have the start of the Haynes 500 here at Martinsville Speedway in Virginia. Beautiful Sunday afternoon, clouds overhead. It rained here overnight, but the weather right now looks pretty good as we get set to go racing. Our Speed World coverage of the Haynes 500 is being brought to you by Quaker State. The big Q is one tough motor oil. By today's Chevrolet, who invite you to see why more people are winning with the heartbeat of America. And by Goodyear, the unanimous choice of every NASCAR Winston Cup team. Just before the start, we'll take a break and then be back with the green flag and the start of the Winston Cup race here at Martinsville. The Phillips 66 in-car camera being carried by Lake Speed. Brett Bodine carries a camera in his Quaker State Buick. Dale Jarrett has the roof cam back once again that we debuted at North Wilkesboro last weekend. This camera is located on the top of that Sitco Ford, and it had some great shots for us last weekend, and we expect the same today. Let's hope that Dale has a better fate than he had last weekend when he ended up in a crash. 7 different winners in the first 7 races of the 1991 season. Will there be winner number 8? We'll answer that question in about 3.5 hours. The green flag is out. The Haynes 500 is underway.
We talked about 7 different winners. 3 of the 4 first starters have not won this year, so it'd be very easy to have an 8th winner in 1991.
A couple of guys didn't have very good starts. The pole sitter Mark Martin back in 3rd spot. Dale Earnhardt did not get off to a particularly good start. He runs right now in 7th place. The leader is Harry Gant. 2nd place is Rick Mast.
Actually, Earnhardt moved up a little bit on the outside, Bob, which is a little tough to do on this racetrack. So he started in the 10th position and moved up to 7th there. He has fallen in line now, most everyone in single file, which is normally the way they run this race for a little while.
There's Chad Little. Jerry Crunch talked about it at the top of the show. Earnhardt trying to go by him on the outside.
Chad is 6th at the moment. Here's side-by-side action. Bobby Hillin, car number 20, and last week's winner, Darrell Waltrip. And Waltrip works the high groove. There is Terry Labonte in 94 there also, and Bill Elliott.
The outside groove is just not the place you want to be so far.
Riding inside the Quaker State Buick with Brett Bodine. You can see Darrell there on the right side on the high lane.
He finally got him a spot on the inside and quickly moved down to the turf.
Last week's pole sitter in North Wilkesboro, Brett Bodine. Terry Labonte and Dale Earnhardt. Make that Darrell Waltrip, I should say. Bumper cam on Lake Speed's car. Looking back on Ted Musgrave, car number 55. The 9 car of Bill Elliott falters on the backstretch and goes very slowly into turn number 3.
Looks like the car is moving under its own power, but Bill will probably be heading for pit road. Yes, here he comes.
Tough break for Bill Elliott. This hasn't been a real good year. In fact, he's going behind the wall completely, so this looks like it might be terminal. We'll check on it and see.
He started 14th and comes out of the race. Parked behind the wall. Look at the bumping and the banging that's going on as
he
Bill Elliott slowed down coming out of corner number 2. And there is the car back behind the wall, and the Coors team going to work on it to see if they can get him back in competition.
He's broken an axle or a rear end. Something in the rear of the car is what it looks like they're working on it.
In days gone by, rear gearing was a big problem on this racetrack because of overheating the grease. They didn't have good ways of cooling it, but that really hasn't been a problem in recent years. The technology has caught up to it, and it's not a big problem anymore.
There we saw our leader, Harry Gant, go by the Skoll Bandit Oldsmobile. There he goes in turn 1. We were talking yesterday afternoon in the compound in our production meeting, and there's no stats to back it up, but that 33 car, the last 3 or 4 races, has been one of the best cars here, but his luck has been unbelievable. Last week he was riding along, and all of a sudden Jeff Bodine, boom, he's in front of him. He runs from the back of it, has to spend about 10 laps in the garage area.
Side-by-side action here. That's Jeff Bodine, the number 11, and Ricky Rudd in car number 5. As we told you, Jeff is going for 3 wins in a row here at Martinsville. He won both races last year. So we have completed 11, make that 12 laps, and Harry Gant continues to hold on to the lead as the Bill Elliott crew goes to work on his car to try to get it back in competition. Harry Gant continues to lead the Haynes 500 here at Martinsville. Rick Mast runs 2nd, followed by Mark Martin, then Ken Schrader, Dale Earnhardt, and Rusty Wallace. Now let's go down to John Kernan, who can update us on Bill Elliott.
Well, as you speculated up in the booth, it is a rear-end problem. Bill said the car just would not go, so they got the car up on jack stands. They pulled the axles, and they're going to change the rear end and try and get him back out on the track to at least pick up some Winston Cup points.
Elliott, one of only 5 drivers with no DNFs in 1991. Harry Gant has pulled away, but there's some good racing here for 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th.
Earnhardt taking a look on the outside of Schrader while we were in commercial. He passed Rusty Wallace on the outside, so if that black 3 can get to the front, he's an awfully good car today.
There's Harry coming off the 2nd corner, and there's the interval between 1st and the next 4.
And fellas, while we were away on the break, Dick Trickle made a pit stop on the backstretch, a long pit stop for the Ken Allen Buick.
Second, third, fourth, and fifth, and Rusty Wallace back in sixth position as we follow the action. Here is Terry Labonte in 94 and Kyle Petty at number 42 racing side by side. Now Kyle gets that Pontiac ahead as they go down the backstretch. Right behind him is Brett Bodine. Leading car camera.
So Kyle Petty's been able to pass both those cars here in the last 4 or 5 laps.
And then it's not an easy chore to pass any car on this racetrack.
And there we see him on the inside of Bobby Hillin, trying to get on the inside of Bobby Hillin.
And he does. Going into turn number 3, he scoots to the inside and moves right around Hillin. And now just ahead is Darrell Waltrip.
And Earnhardt making another move on the outside of Kenny Schrader. Couldn't quite do that.
The fourth position, and he goes into turn 3 side by side with Ken Schrader. Schrader holds him off for the moment. Let's see what happens as they come down the straightaway and head to turn 1.
Boy, it's so hard to get traction coming off those corners.
What about 130, 35 miles an hour at the end of the straight?
Probably 115 or 20, but you've got to make a 90-degree left-hander in about, what, 75 or 100 yards net? Is that about that much time they got to turn around and go the other direction?
Yes, and you don't have a lot of banking there to hold you if you get in there too fast. Only 12 degrees of banking. In fact, when you go in there at that speed, it looks like that it's banked the other way as opposed to having what banking it does have.
And speaking of banking, a totally different kind of racing, although it's the same series next weekend as we move to the high banks of Talladega for the Winston 500 live next Sunday afternoon here on ESPN. Here's Rick Mast and Mark Martin, second and third. And just behind this pack of cars, Chad Little leads the next group of drivers as Alan Kulwicki, Ernie Irvan, Dale Jarrett, and Richard Petty are following him. And now Kulwicki tries to get to the inside. He bumps Chad just a little bit, going into the corner.
A little bit more.
And they continue to bump coming out of the second turn.
And here comes Ernie Irvan up on the outside in the Kodak Oldsmobile.
Here's that roof cam that Dale Jarrett is carrying for us.
He's hoping he can get up there and take advantage of that situation, but he couldn't quite do it.
Now Chad Little washes out. Maybe Kulwicki's got what he needs, and Dale Jarrett's going to follow and try to get by Ernie. Now they're side by side as well as Kulwicki and Chad Little.
Yep, Kulwicki does pass Chad Little as Chad is hung out to the outside, and here comes Dale now to move to the inside of Chad.
And there in the back is Kyle and Richard Petty, side by side.
Father and son are racing together. Here's a bumper cam.
Ooh, Chad Little got in a little too hard into turn 3. He almost lost it. He did a good job of getting it squared away, but he lost a couple of positions.
Kind of like that camera last night in Speedway Thunder. We knew he wasn't supposed to be seeing the sky of the back of that Battle Star.
Here it is again. Chad, yeah, got the rear end out a little. May have had a slight bump from Ernie Irvan. Second place battle. Look at Mark Martin go to the inside of Rick Maston to turn 1, and Mark Martin goes into second place.
Kenny Schrader not able to get in to capitalize when he had Mast hung out to dry.
Here's Kyle Petty making another move on the inside of Ernie Irvan. Well, his car's working.
Yeah,
Yellow Pontiac.
He is going to the front.
While all this is going on, Harry Gant, he's just pulling away from him out front, just riding along nice.
And Richard Petty slips back a couple of positions. He's now 12th. And Darrell Waltrip now moves to the inside of Chad Little.
Well, you can see some battle scars already on the inside of the Ford number 19 of Chad. Taking a little bit of abuse here early. Darrell hasn't given him any. He's just moving by nice and smooth on the inside.
And now we see Rusty Wallace and Dale Earnhardt battling side by side once again.
Earnhardt passed Rusty Wallace about 10 laps ago.
On the outside.
On the outside now, Wallace takes a spot back. Richard Petty gets by Chad Little. Darrell has been able to make that pass.
Richard with a good qualifying effort here this weekend. has big hopes. This may be 201. Meanwhile, Harry Gant continues to lead. Mark Martin, Rick Mast, Ken Schrader, Rusty Wallace, and Dale Earnhardt as we're early in the Haynes 500. ESPN Speed World live today at Martinsville, Virginia for the Haynes 500. We are under caution for a spin up in turn number 3 involving Joe Ruttman, who is continuing. Now, this race has been pretty clean so far. The drivers haven't been bumping and banging very much, but there's a good reason for that, right, Doc?
Indeed. Dick Beatty, who is, of course, the director of competition for the Winston Cup division, gave these drivers a stern talking to during the drivers' meeting. He said, I warn you guys, no retaliation this week. What happened at Bristol and what happened at Wilkesboro, that's over, that's in the past. Good, clean racing, and you can rub them, but you can't shove them and push them out of the way. I promise you, if you do, I'll park you. And, of course, about 4 or 5 drivers turned very red in the face and sort of smiled, and Dick said, I'm telling you. So now they've already warned a couple of guys down here about the early laps, about some of that pushing and shoving, so we'll keep an eye and see if some of these guys will listen to Mr. Beatty.
We are about to go back to racing after our first caution period, coming down for a restart. The pace car pulling off the track in turn number 4, and Harry Gant steps on the accelerator, and we resume the Haynes 500.
Rusty Wallace pulled out, tried to get on the inside of Ken Schrader going into turn 1, but Ken would have nothing of that. He covered that spot well.
Boy, Harry Gant is a fellow who did not want to see that caution flag. Had about a straightaway lead, just cruising along, and now Mark Martin's on his back bumper, pushed him again.
Brett Bodine, who not only carries a car camera, but also carries a foot cam, may be having brake problems. What do you think, guys?
I don't know. He's on the brake an awfully long time. That left foot poised on that brake down the straightaway. You see him pumping the pedal.
Boy, it's pretty early in the race to be pumping that much, man.
Yeah.
He doesn't have as much pedal as he really needs this early in the race.
How about it, John Kernan? What do you hear?
Brett has radioed in. He's having a problem with his brakes. They think that first that they needed to just come in and have him bled, but right now they think they got a problem with the master cylinder because he keeps pumping the brakes and he still doesn't have any pedal.
I would imagine brakes is something that you don't want to run too many laps here at Martinsville without, huh?
You don't want to run any place without them. You know, brakes this week is such an important part of the race, and next week you could take the pedal out and throw it away if it wasn't for wrecks or pit stops that you have to make.
Up front, there you can see that Harry Gant continues to lead, and he is pulling away from Mark Martin and the others, including Rusty Wallace. And here's Jerry with a report on Rusty.
Rusty reported during that caution flag that the car was running a little bit hot. The water temperature was showing a little over 230 degrees. It's about 10 to 15 degrees warmer than they'd like to see it here at Martinsville, particularly early on. So Jimmy Maycar and the crew have told Rusty, just back off and get some fresh air in the grill in the front of that car. And if you get a running straighter, then go after him. But don't keep tucked underneath that rear of that Kodiak Chevrolet, or it'll get hotter and hotter.
Back in the pack, meanwhile, it's Chad Little with the number 11 car of Bodine. There's Jimmy Spencer in the banquet car. Michael Waltrip is ahead of this group.
What did Spencer, didn't he start 28th or something? Yes, he did start 28th today. He's got by Davey Allison, who started, I think, 26th. And there we see Brett Bodine, as reported, got some brake problems. There's a view outside the right side of Brett's car, right beside of Chad Little. That's how close they get in the corners.
Chad started 6th, but has fallen back here in the first 40 laps. Ken Schrader trying to find the way around the number 1 car of Rick Mast for 3rd spot. Ken's got the inside line coming off the corner.
Yep, when Rick moved up just a little bit, that's all Schrader was looking for. Let's see if he can do it, getting down into turn 1. Rick Mast gives him running room. He should get him going into turn 3.
Rusty Wallace watching all of this from behind these two guys. Again, Schrader pulls alongside of Mast.
Hey, Rick Mast is getting pretty good bite off those corners now up high, man.
He really is. That surprises me. I thought when Schrader went into turn 3 that he would have him, but so far he's hanging on out there. Unless he makes a big slip, I think he will eventually get him, but he's having to work for it.
Sure is.
most of the time you get it on the inside of a driver, you can count him out. You know, you just pass him going into the next turn. But Mansfield's doing a good job.
And the 42 car there, Kyle Petty behind Rusty Wallace, now moved up to 6th position.
Moved around Dale Earnhardt a couple of laps ago while we were watching this battle. So Kyle,
17.
yeah, he has come a long way up to the top. That's impressive.
Schrader now able to make the pass, and here comes Rusty Wallace to try to do likewise, and Kyle Petty.
Kyle might have the best car on the racetrack right now. It'd be close, I think, as far as Harry Gant is concerned, but they definitely, the two of them have the best, I believe.
More on the early Kyle Petty run from John Kernan.
Well, I'll tell you what, it really shouldn't surprise anyone that Kyle is running so well here at Martinsville. 2 weeks ago, the Mellow Yellow crew spent 2 days here at the track. On the first day, they worked on different setup things. On the second day, they worked on long runs. Kyle would go out and run 100 to 115 laps at a setting, bring the car in, make a fine-tuned adjustment on it. So they really feel that they have a handle on this racetrack, and I think it's showing up right now.
He has moved up steadily in the first 51 laps of competition.
One disadvantage that he'll have, fellas, when he starts making that pit stop, he's had a poor qualifying run. He's pitting on the backstretch, and he'll have to pit, at least under caution, he'll have to pit after the front side cars have pitted.
Back in the pack we go once again. There is Sterling Marlin with Michael Waldrop, Jeff Bodine, and Davey Allison.
I don't think NASCAR wants to see these two guys racing too much today. Last week, they had a little bumpiness.
Dale Earnhardt just passed Rick Mast a moment ago. 6th.
And the 25 car of Ken Schrader has moved to 3rd position now, while Mark Martin is 2nd, and the leader of the race is Harry Gant, who has led all the way so far and has been able to pull away from the rest of the field. Harry Gant from Taylorsville, North Carolina, leads the Haynes 500 at Martinsville, Virginia. Harry Gant continues to lead the Haynes 500. Harry got his very first Winston Cup win here in April of 1982 in his 107th start. And we watch our leader from the Phillips 66 in-car camera in Lake Speed's machine,
who just went a lap down a lap or so ago.
It was strange that Harry Gant didn't go down and hug the curb. Watch this, Ned. He's out 3 or 4 feet away from that curb, going through the corners, and most of these guys think he's got to be rubbing that curb to be in the groove.
He's found himself a groove there that works well for him. Here's a battle.
Jeff Bodine and Davey Allison continue to run together on the racetrack, also with Sterling Marlin and Jimmy Spencer. Sterling did start the race. He's still in that car, hoping to go at least to the first caution and maybe beyond that.
Well, he has already gone past the first caution, and his PR man, Chris Browning, said this morning that he was feeling good and that he was going to stay in it perhaps longer than that first caution, and we'll see how it went during the race.
This is the side cam on Brett Bodine's car, and look how close they are.
Brett slides up just a there we go.
Despite the reported brake problems, Brett moves up.
He's running a little less than a half a lap behind Harry Gant.
The 5 car of Ricky Rudd has also been very strong here in the early going. He started 22nd and is now up to 8th.
There we see Ted Musgrave on the inside in the Alka-Seltzer sponsorship for the 3rd week in a row on that car.
Musgrave had a good run at Bristol a couple of weeks ago. Stayed in the lead lap for a long, long time.
Rudd's car, we saw Rick Master back in wiggle just a little bit, and Rudd's car did not wiggle at all. Very straight off the corners, and that's what you've got to do to be able to accelerate off the corners, is bring it off straight, no wiggling.
22nd to 8th in the first 64 laps.
Well, I'll tell you, that car is getting a bite off the turn. Ricky Rudd, look at him go on the inside of Rick Master. Watch him accelerate now down the backstretch and just pull away from him.
And he moves into 7th.
That's another one of those fellas that Ned was talking about that's pitting on the back straightaway. So if the caution should come out and they make a pit stop, he's a huge disadvantage.
Here's Lake Speed, who has already been lapped. As we see Ricky Rudd go to the high side of Lake.
Rick Mast in the 1 car. One thing on the right side, the little canister is the air system that Lake is getting some fresh air to breathe today.
A couple of interesting characteristics about this racetrack. We've already talked about the curve. There is the hose that we're talking about. And the fact that in the corners, they're running on concrete right there in the corner itself, but then come on to pavement.
When they first did that many years ago, that was some kind of an experience because you were used to running on the black asphalt, and certainly it's a different surface as far as the tires gripping are concerned, but then it's worked out pretty well here over the years.
It's worked a lot better than I think most everyone thought it would when Clay Earls put it in. I think it's worked out very well. Sometimes you nail the gas and the back end will spin. It seems like a little worse, but not that much worse. And Clay had a lot of problems. These cars are so heavy, they get such a grip. He had a lot of trouble with the pavement tearing up. He said, I'm tired of repaving this thing after every race. He put cement down, and it's been there for several years.
For the front of the pack, it has now become a battle between the 6 car of Mark Martin and the 25 of Ken Schrader.
Mark Martin is backed up to this group. He was in front of him a few car lengths just a few laps ago. Now he's backed up to Schrader, Rusty, Kyle Petty. There's Earnhardt, Ricky Rudd. Watch as your favorite driver goes by.
There's Ernie Irvin and
Earl Waltrip was trying to get on the inside of Ernie Irvin going into turn 1.
Joe Rutman, who brought out our first caution. Bill Sedgwick, Bud Strickland, Mickey Gibbs, 20 car of Bobby Hillen. And it's a 21.8-second lap for Harry Gant as he puts a lap on Chad Little.
Started in 6th place.
Harry Gant showing the way here in the early going. That car is strong once again this weekend as we are live at Martinsville, Virginia.
I think you're right, Dan.
See the fire?
Yeah.
Look at fire in that right rear. Now, Sterling, you had all you want to do with fire.
Sure, that's a word that Sterling doesn't want to hear again is fire because he's recuperating from injury suffered in an inferno in Bristol a few weeks ago.
Now that smoke could be coming from brake fluid maybe if something has happened as far as the brakes is concerned.
We see the fire still, it's still in there, it's still burning. So now to see he has no brakes, so he has to try to use the transmission and the gearing to slow it down, and his pit is right there. There's his crew. And I hope that they realize it's on fire. There's the extinguisher. That's Tim Brewer with a Budweiser crew with the fire extinguisher putting the fire out.
Once again, we see an example of crews helping other crews when there is a problem with a race car or a driver. Many members of the Junior Johnson team are surveying that situation. Of course, these are same owner, Junior Johnson, but they have separate crews.
Fellas, while we were watching that, Bill Elliott went back on the track. Of course, he's many laps down, but he is out there. And Harry Gant, the leader in tracking.
Rick Wilson right in front of it in the Snickers Buick, and Bobby Hillen, the Rob Moroso Memorial Oldsmobile.
Look how close, how fast Harry closes on these two cars.
They're trying to race each other to keep from getting a lap down, but he's going to make it.
Jimmy Spencer, Terry Labonte, and Michael Waltrip have been running together for several laps. They continue to do so as Michael and Terry get very close to each other in the third turn.
Now this group of cars is about 2/3 of a lap behind the leader, and there's trouble in turn 3 right in front of the leader.
Boy, Harry just dodged that bullet as Bobby Hillen went into the wall in turn 3.
Jeff Bodine is slow up in turns 1 and 2.
He did a 360 apparently and keeps going.
Man, there's too much action going on. I'm watching one end of the racetrack and it's on the other end of the racetrack.
Second caution period of the afternoon comes out. And here it is once again. Watch the 20 car ahead of Harry Gant and Rick Wilson.
Rick Wilson goes down, tries to get on the inside. He and Hillen make contact. Hillen spins up to the racetrack, and you're right in front of Harry. And he has some good brakes because he able to stop that car and just turn left.
Yeah, he committed to go high and just stayed up there. Let's see what happened with Jeff Bodine now, as it looked like he and Bill Sedgwick in car number 76 got together. And he makes the 360.
That Jeff is the greatest I've ever seen at 360.
Let's go to Jerry Punch as Harry Gant comes in for a stop.
Well, indeed, he used the brakes up quite a bit on this Skoal Oldsmobile as there's a lot of smoke coming out from the vents there that they changed the tires. Andy Petrie and the rest of the Skoal crew now trying to get right side, now left side tires on the car. Gant's car down and away. A lot of action here in the pits. We mentioned Rusty Wallace up and down pit road. A lot of cars taking advantage. A major chassis adjustment going on the Ernie Irvin car. Here is Rick Mass leading Rusty Wallace has been in the pits, as has Mark Martin, our pole sitter.
And we might mention that the same pit rules that were in effect last weekend are in effect again, and you can see that Richard Petty is being held on pit road because his car crossed that yellow line there, marking the front of his pit.
Well, that's too bad.
He's over the line. We can see the inspector standing there.
Now Richard is allowed to pull back out onto the racetrack. Now let's go inside Brett Bodine's car and watch how his brother Jeff got in trouble just a few minutes ago.
This down in turn 1 and 2. Jeff in the Bill Sedgwick car makes contact. Brett must have some brakes, Ned, because he's able to stop just in time.
Yes, he was. Moved on the outside and went on around there.
So our second caution period is upon us here at Martinsville. Jeff Bodine is moving again. We'll be right back. Caution light still on as Jeff Bodine spins down in turn number 2, and also Bobby Hillen tagging the wall in turn number 3. Here once again is the real-time replay from Brett Bodine's in-car camera.
Boy, that car went around in a rush.
Just a little tap from the Bill Sedgwick car, number 76, and round she went.
And the brothers are still together. This is on the caution flag as we look at Jeff, and right behind him is his brother Brett.
Jeff won both races here at Martinsville last year, both the spring race and the fall race. And our replay will show the action from a year ago here at Martinsville. Winston Cup replays are brought to you by Autolite Spark Plugs, guaranteed for 2 years no matter how far you go. 32 cars lined up for the start of the Haynes 500 here at Martinsville last April. Jeff Bodine was on the pole with Dale Earnhardt alongside. Dale led the first 21 laps, with Jeff and Ernie Irvin battling for second. Bodine got the advantage on lap 22 and became the second of 5 drivers to lead. Rusty Wallace would be another, gaining the top spot on lap 115. He later became involved in a battle with Darrell Waltrip, who had won 3 events in a row here. Rusty and Jeff exchanged the lead 5 times during the 500-lap event. The last series of pit stops saw Bodine win the race off a pit road. And Jeff went on to win by 5 seconds over Rusty. It was the 9th time in NASCAR history that brothers had won back-to-back races. Jeff's brother Brett had won the previous weekend at North Wilkesboro. Jeff Bodine finds himself in 13th position as we are under our second caution of the day here at Martinsville. We'll be right back. For the first time this afternoon, Harry Gant finds himself pressured, and he is really being pressured by Dale Earnhardt, who's about to take the lead. They come off the second corner, they bump a little bit, they go down the back stretch side by side and head for 3 wheel-to-wheel. This is the battle for the lead as they come out of the corner. Earnhardt has the advantage just slightly over Gant.
Earnhardt was able to come out of the pit, the series of pit stops in second place. It looks like they've adjusted the car, and Harry Gant gets a bite off the second corner and stays in front of Earnhardt on the outside.
But here comes Dale battling back.
I think Earnhardt's going to have to do some more adjusting, Ed.
I believe he is too.
His car was really good for 3 or 4 laps, but now it seems to be drifting back, and Harry Gant's supremacy is showing again.
At this point in the 1990 season, Dale Earnhardt had led 968 miles, 613 laps. This year, he's led 283 miles. That's only 30% of what he had at this time last year, but he's still second in the Winston Cup points, 97 behind the leader, Ricky Rudd.
Jeff Bodine trying to make a move on the inside of Alan Kowicki. We'll see him come into the picture there in just a moment. There they are. Joe Ruttman, a lap down, is in the lower groove, just giving them racing room, but Jeff Bodine finally maybe gets by Alan Kowicki, and here comes Ricky Rudd to move around Kowicki as well.
Both those cars, Jeff Bodine and Ricky Rudd, having to pit on the back straightaway, so they drop back in the running order a little bit after the caution and the pit stops.
Talking about that back stretch pitting, Benny, Kyle Petty had taken the lead when the caution came out, when Harry Gant had to slow, but he came out of the pits in 7th position as a result of pitting on the back stretch.
Just ahead of Brett Bodine here in the Quaker State Buick is Bobby Hillen, who was responsible for our second caution of the day when he made contact with another car and slid into the wall in turn 3. Now Brett Bodine pulls alongside and comes close to bumping with Bobby. And there's Ernie Irvin now moving inside of Hillen. Ernie Irvin may be having a problem with that car. Jerry, what do you hear?
Well, actually, Bob, he is having a problem. The car is dropped back some and it's not performing well to his liking. The car is bouncing. And it makes the right rear and spring a little bit too soft. So when they get a chance under the next caution fight, they're going to bring him in and possibly insert one of these rubber spacers, these rubbers you saw in our track back last week, in the right rear to stiffen that spring a little bit so the car will stand up and he can drive it deeper in the corner.
All right, we'll watch for that possibly next time that Ernie Irvin comes in. Right now, he's in 14th place. Brett Bodine, we talked about his possible fuel problem, but John, you say he may have yet another?
It has not been a great afternoon so far for Brett Bodine. He's radioed in. He's got a carburetor problem. It burbles, to quote Clyde Booth, the team manager, off of the corners, so it doesn't want to get any gas or any fuel to the engine when it comes off the corners. He says they still have the brake problem that Brett is just trying to learn to live with that right now. They have another problem to live with at the moment.
That bubbling off the corner sounds like a valve spring, Ned. You know, losing a little bit of its horsepower in the middle, sometimes they'll do that.
When this track gets real slick as time goes by, that doesn't bother you. If it doesn't get worse, it doesn't bother you as much as it would at this point in the track.
Ernie Irvin and Jimmy Spencer are nose to tail behind Brett. And then comes a whole group of cars. Bobby Hillen, Michael Waltrip, Terry Labonte, Joe Ruttman. There's Morgan Shepherd in the number 15 car, and Hut Strickland in 12.
Davey Allison, who was running 11th when the last caution came out, pitted on the back straightaway, went back to about the 20th spot.
Shepherd had to take a provisional to get into the race, number 15, and he and Bobby Hillen just had a slight incident of paint trading.
No, it's both red, so
you can't tell the difference, right? Now he pulls alongside Hillen.
And there's two cars in front of him that has a lot of yellow on them.
Ooh, and Bobby Hillen tried to get out of Terry Labonte's way and almost came down the hill in front of him. This time he moves up in the corner and lets Terry Labonte on the inside. Strickland trying to get by on the inside. Davey Allison, Mickey Gibbs back there.
.110 laps gone out of 500. Oh, a spin. Hillen once again spins. This time doesn't make contact with the wall. Will it bring out a caution? None yet. Now it flies. Gant comes down, takes the third caution flag of the day.
Now then, Ned, how many of these good cars do you think will pit?
I don't believe those up front are going to pit. Benny, the tires aren't giving up as much here as we have seen on some other tracks.
Mickey Gibbs and Bobby Hillen, almost identical, the same thing that happened with the 8 car of Rick Wilson and Bobby Hillin 20-30 laps ago.
Here it is from another angle. Watch the 24 move inside of the 20 and make contact. That sends Hillin spinning up toward the wall, but he got to stop before making contact. So once again, we are under caution here at Martinsville, Virginia in the Haynes 500. We'll be right back. Live from Martinsville Speedway in Virginia, welcome back to coverage of the Haynes 500 Winston Cup race. We've completed 113 of the 500 laps. Our Speed World coverage is being brought to you by Suzuki. Your Suzuki dealer has the ride you've been waiting for and the financing to get it. By Channel Lock, made in America for you who want the best. And by Bud Light, everything else is just a light. Let's go down to Jerry Punch on pit road.
Gentlemen, stock car racing is catching on all over the country. It's growing by leaps and bounds, and there are a lot of celebrities here today who just come to watch great short track racing. Now, we're going to show you in the grandstands 2 guys you've probably seen doing a little bit different sport on Sunday afternoons occasionally. 2 of the noted hogs from the Washington Redskins. We're talking about offensive lineman Russ Graham and tight end Donnie Warren. And they are here pulling for Kyle Petty and a couple other favorites, Rusty Wallace and Bill Elliott. They are up in the grandstands enjoying great stock car racing for a few weeks, and they're going to go back to camp and get ready to play some football, which you'll see also on ESPN. Gentlemen?
All right, Jerry, and tonight you'll see baseball here on ESPN. At 8 o'clock, we have the Boston Red Sox against the Kansas City Royals. Sunday night baseball tonight, live on ESPN at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. We remain under caution. Here's a look at the top 10 in our Haynes 500. We'll be back with more of our live coverage right after these messages. The green has just come out. The cars come off of corner number 2 down the backstretch. Going back to racing. Our third caution, that's Harry Gant still leading the procession. Dale Earnhardt is second, followed by Mark Martin, Rusty Wallace, and Ken Schrader.
Earnhardt for the first few laps, when they throw on the first few laps on his tires after a green flag, is pretty strong. But still, he held on to Harry again pretty tough. Harry never left him with, what, 10 or 15 car lengths in the last time?
And then Earnhardt he closed back in, so he wasn't over a couple of car lengths behind when this last caution came out.
Earnhardt continuing to pressure Harry Gant. Let's go down to Jerry Punch.
Well, gentlemen, the reason Dale Earnhardt backed off a minute ago, what Richard Childers has told me is the brakes started to go away. The brakes got very soft on the Goodrich Chevrolet, so he told Dale just to back off and cool them a little bit. After that caution flag and it cooled down, Dale was going to make a run at him for a few laps, and then if they start going away, he has to back off again. So we'll see what happens.
He's staying within about a car length now of Harry, as Mark Martin has about 3 car lengths between himself and Earnhardt.
None of the lead cars chose to pit on that last caution flag. Felt like track position was worth more than 4 fresh tires.
Kyle Petty is 6th. Rick Mast is 7th. In 8th is Darrell Waltrip. 9th is Dale Jarrett. Jeff Bodine is 11th. Ricky Rudd 12th. And Alan Kowicki is next in line. Then Brett Bodine, Jimmy Spencer, Michael Waltrip, Gordon Shepard. And during that last caution, fellas, Bobby Hillin came in for a pit stop. They held him a lap in the pits because he passed the pace car going out the pits. So Bobby just continuing to have troubles here today.
Well, this has been a relatively clean race. We've had some incidents of bumping, but nothing real bad. And this short, tight racetrack here at Martinsville is usually where you see a lot of that kind of thing. So apparently the talk that Beatty had with them in the drivers' meeting this morning has done some good. It's been a real clean race so far.
He said, you make a mistake, I'm going to penalize you. It's my job to penalize you, and I look forward to it.
Dick Beatty's one of the nicest people in the country, but when he wants to tell you something that he means, he can flat lay it on the line and he'll scare you.
You're watching first and second, Harry Gant and Dale Earnhardt. We might mention that there has been a driver change in the 22 car. Charlie Glotzback has gone into the cockpit, and we have an incident here on the main stretch. Ernie Irvin.
I don't think anybody's hit him so far unless Bill Ellis gets into him.
No, Bill's going to move down every side of him and figures out he's got room and goes on around.
Bobby Hillin's trying to get by. Look at the heavy damage on the right side of Ernie's car. He made some contact right in front of the start-finish line with someone, and got the car out of shape and never was able to get it back under control.
By the way, they didn't put the rubber spacers in that car during the most recent series of pit stops. Let's see if we can tell who he had contact with.
Hutch
Strickland? Yep.
I believe that is Hutch Strickland in the 12 car.
Tried his best to get it straightened out, but just couldn't. Then he got down the grass, and he didn't have a whole lot of control then. And he was very fortunate to come back up in front of that pack of cars and not get hit.
Richard Petty making a nice move to the inside to avoid the contact. So Ernie Irvan spins here on the main straightaway down into turn 1 to bring out our 4th caution of the race.
Ernie Irvan is pleading his case with the NASCAR official, saying that some of the lap cars just won't get out of the way. He's trying to pass them. He's in the lead lap, but he sits there and he takes his medicine. And of course, he is now down and away. They have changed all 4 tires. They did indeed insert that rubber that I showed you a minute ago in the right rear to keep that bouncing from being a problem. But now he has lost 2 laps here in the pits by virtue of a penalty.
Well, here's a replay of the incident that he was involved in with Hutch Strickland. You really can't tell from that angle if Ernie was blatantly at fault, but in any case, he was held 2 laps by the NASCAR officials. Ernie getting set with the rest of the field to restart, and the green flag flies again.
Harry again goes high down in turn 1. If Earnhardt had only been there that time, Ned, he could probably got the spot away.
Yeah, he could have. Chad Little, with relative to new tires on his car, was down there trying to get back in the lead lap, but couldn't quite do it.
Earnhardt continues to pressure Gant. Mark Martin is 3rd, then Rusty Wallace, Ken Schrader, Kyle Petty, Rick Mast, Darrell Waltrip, Dale Jarrett.
See Mark Martin, Rusty Wallace. You know, Earnhardt has a good race car now, Ned. I thought a little bit ago when he backed up that he had a chassis problem, but as Jerry reported, it is a brake problem. His chassis is working well. He's got a good race car. He may be the match of Harry Gant.
He's able to run with him now. Putting the pressure on him.
We know that Richard Childress has told him that Ernie Irvan has been penalized for 2 laps, so you know that he didn't want to make any excessive contact with Harry Gant. He looks on the inside.
Now he may have that inside line coming off the corner. Side by side at the line. Into 1.
Well, that chassis is working. You know, this is a situation here where horsepower is not everything. You got to have that chassis working off those corners. And Earnhardt, with his chassis working beautifully, takes the spot away.
Dale Earnhardt moves to the front, dropping Harry Gant back to 2nd position. Now Mark Martin begins to close on Harry, and he spins. Running by himself, Gant just lost it and spun.
And then coming out of the turn, Mark Martin and Ken Schrader spun around.
Ooh, some damage to that Kodiak Chevrolet. Look at the front on that car.
Ken Schrader heavily damaged in the front end.
And Harry Gant's car is still sitting there. As we see Schrader's car sitting there, Gant's car won't move.
Evidently, it won't fire. Or maybe something happened to it that caused all of that to begin with, and it won't crank.
Very uncharacteristic, because there wasn't anybody close to Harry. He just went into the corner, and
all of a sudden, the back end just goes out from under it. Mark Martin, now let's watch him. Here comes Rusty down on the inside in the car number 2. Mark Martin goes high. Here's Ken Schrader.
Here it is from another angle. Gant begins to slide in the middle of the corner.
It's like he had a flat tire or something.
Looked like the tire just maybe did go flat going into the turn. Mark Martin goes on the high side, and then here's Ken Schrader going on the low side. And let's see what happens as they come out, and they slam together as they came out of turn 2.
Oh, yeah.
And then they spun around.
Mark was up in the high groove, and as he came down toward the inside line, the car just got out from under him, and he collided with Ken Schrader.
That's almost identical to what happened to Dale Jarrett last week at North Wilkesboro with these radial tires. When he turned the car, the tire just ripped, and he turned left.
Let's go to Jerry Punches. Harry Gant heads in.
Well, a frustrated Harry Gant, as well as the Skull crew. They can't believe the kind of luck they had. You heard Benny Parsons talk about what a great car they've had the past 3 weeks, and his luck has been nothing short of abysmal. Harry Gant's crew now changing right side tires. Charlie Presley comes around with a jack to the left side. Andy Petrie pulls off the left rear tire. They replace it with fresh Goodyear Eagle. They fuel the car. There's a few wheel marks on the side. And apparently you guys are right. They had a tire going down. The car abruptly snaps around and spun out. But now he has been serviced and is headed back down pit road.
Harry Gant, a two-time winner here at Martinsville, goes back out onto the racetrack. Over in the second corner, they continue to clean up the Ken Schrader accident. We'll be right back. Back at the Haynes 500 in Martinsville, Virginia, ESPN Speed World live presentation. We're about to go back to green after our fifth caution of the afternoon. Ken Schrader's car was badly damaged. Harry Gant continues to be in the race. He's a lap down, and Mark Martin remained on the lead lap as the crowd rises to its feet and cheers the restart of the Haynes 500 on lap 141. Now Dale Earnhardt is the leader, and Rusty Wallace is second.
Don't count Harry Gant out of this thing, fellas. He's just one lap down. As fast as his car is, if he can get a couple of breaks, he can be right back in it.
Now it's Earnhardt's turn to be pressured by Rusty Wallace. He's not done quite as good job pressuring Earnhardt as he did Harry Gant.
Not too far back in third is Kyle Petty. Dale Earnhardt has 4 wins here at Martinsville. And behind him, Rusty Wallace, the winner of the 1986 Goodies 500, the fall race here at Martinsville. Alan Kulwicki and Brett Bodine involved in a bit of a battle.
Evidently, these caution flags are exactly what Brett needs, able to cool those brakes and keep them on the car.
This is the battle for 8th position. As we go inside Brett's car. There's Ricky Rudd, number 5 in 7th place.
Brett Bodine goes in right on the back bumper of Kulwicki. You can imagine if he didn't have any brakes, what would happen.
It looked like he was pumping quite as much as he did a little bit earlier.
Sponsorship on Kulwicki's car extended for at least one more race.
So there's a possibility that they might come on for the rest of the year. That is not anything definite yet, but they seem pleased with the exposure that they've gotten since they've been on Kulwicki's car.
Glasback in the Maxwell House car there on the outside of Alan Kulwicki. Glasback has replaced Sterling Marlin.
Of course, that car is many laps down as a result of the brake problems they had earlier.
Kulwicki in 8th, Bodine in 9th, then Spencer and Shepard. Appear to be pretty evenly matched. You just can't make the car pass there on the high side.
Looks like with Brett Bodine, if he could get by on him, might be a little bit quicker, but as long as these cars run in the same track, it's awfully hard to pass. See, Brett's looking on the inside, but just can't, the chassis just does not allow him to go all the way to the floorboard to that throttle and drive by.
Bill Sedgwick making his unscheduled pit stop on the backstretch.
Now watch him. Pumping the brake.
Off the gas.
Going to the third corner.
And now he starts back. All the way down. He's on the gas, on the floorboard pretty quick.
Yeah, the car is hooked up pretty well for him to be able to get on the gas that much. Most of the time, he's got a feather off the gas.
You can see he gets off the accelerator and onto the brake right about the halfway point down the straightaways. Now really closing in on Allen.
As Allen closes in on the back of Glossback. Now Glossback moves over, lets the faster cars go by for the cars in the lead lap. He's several laps down.
Jimmy Spencer begins to put pressure on Brett. Has moved up 6 positions since the start of the race. Now behind Brett and Kowicki, there you have Jimmy Spencer, Morgan Shepherd, Michael Waltrip in car number 30, and Hut Strickland.
Right behind him is Davey Allison. Right behind him is Dale Jarrett. Both Allison and Jarrett made pit stops on this last caution, which put them back near the end of the pack.
Now Allison moving right alongside Hut as we have the car, the shot from the roof cam on Dale Jarrett's car.
All these cars in the lead lap, except the 22 car. He, as I said, several laps ago, had a mechanical problem. The brake went away or an axle seal or something. Had a small fire in the right rear. Spent several laps fixing it. On the inside of Michael.
And Rudd on the inside of Waltrip.
Yeah. I wonder if Darrell recognizes that paint job.
Yeah. It's kind of a reflection of yesteryear for Darrell. Rudd.
That put Rudd into 6th position, and he appears to be one of the fastest cars on the track. In fact, he has been. He started way back, having to fit on the backstretch, so that's a disadvantage for him, but he has come back up through the pack, has made some good passes. So Ricky Rudd, who has run here on this racetrack, there's Jeff Bodine running in 5th place, having a good run after an earlier spin.
Bodine, the Budweiser car, just ahead of him is the Skoll Classic, driven by Rick Mast. And then we continue to move forward to see Kyle Petty, who has also been very strong here in the little more than first quarter of the race, I should say.
He's 3rd now.
The 33 car of Harry Gant is ahead of Kyle, but remember, he is a lap down, but on the other hand, he's moved up quite a bit.
He really has. As a matter of fact, he has passed a lot of cars and has run these cars down, so he needs to get up and pass Earnhardt and be back in the lead lap. And you can see he is not too far behind, which he's got to get by Rusty first.
Rusty is 2nd place in number 2, and the 4 car of Ernie Irvin is ahead of Rusty and behind the leader, Dale Earnhardt.
Ernie Irvin in the 4th passed Rusty Wallace a few laps ago. Took off after Earnhardt, but after a few laps, he's fell back in the clutches of the 2 car and has moved over and let Rusty and Harry Gant go by on the back straightaway.
Another car you can't count out of this thing is Jeff Bodine. He's passed the 1 car.
So that puts him in 4th position now. Moves Mast back to 5th. Ricky Rudd, you can see there, is in 6th place.
Bodine did not have a particularly good qualifying effort. Started in 18th position. Again, one of those pitting on the back stretch. Only the top 16 qualifiers are on the front stretch. But he has moved up.
And there's trouble over in turn 2. Mickey Gibbs has spun out in the Pontiac number 24. And caution is out.
For the 6th time today, Mickey Gibbs spinning over in turn number 2. And the field is slow. Let's go down to Jerry Punch as they work on Ken Schrader's car.
A lot like leaves on a head of lettuce, they have peeled away the layers of this Chevrolet Lumina. You see him working on the front of the Kodiak Chevrolet. Kenny, once again, you're a victim.
Well, yeah, track got filled up real quick. Mark and Harry got together somehow, and Harry and Mark, just one of them things.
How bad is the car hurt?
I'm not getting out and looking at, but I know the front frame harns are over. It's got the steering box over a couple inches, and the steering shaft bound up.
So they're going to try to get him back out. He is 7th currently in the Winston Cup point standing, so they are going to try to get him out as soon as possible. Meanwhile, under the caution, we should be seeing some pit stops.
Indeed, here comes Earnhardt and Wallace and Rick Mast and Darrell Waltrip. See the action on pit road, but the cars come in very slowly and making sure they don't violate any rules and go past the line.
See the 26 car, he could not get in his pit. So he just chose to go back around and come in the next time rather than try to squeeze in there.
Let's get out to Jerry, who's in Rusty Wallace's pit.
They have changed the right side tires and are now changing the left side tires with the Miller Genuine Draft Pontiac. Russell Wallace is down in the lane. Earnhardt is likewise changed all 4 tires, so they will be followed out by Darrell Waltrip, Dale Jarrett, and Rick Mast. Single file into turn 1.
We are live at Martinsville, Virginia for the Haynes 500 Winston Cup race. We'll come back after this. Here are the top 5, Davey Allison, Mark Martin, Dale Earnhardt, Rusty Wallace, and Darrell Waltrip, and they cross the line to take the green flag and the resumption of the race. And look who's back on the lead lap, at least for the moment.
That's Harry Gant in the car number 33 at the tail end of the lead lap. He did not make a pit stop, neither did Davey Allison. But Allison, as I mentioned earlier, had pitted on that last caution, pitting on the backstretch, and he was very fast coming up through the pack. But Gant needs to hold on and stay out front there in case another caution comes out. Here's Dale Earnhardt trying to move on the inside of Mark Martin, takes over second.
So it's Allison leading. Earnhardt now moves to second.
Right. Davey spins. Don't come back in front of that punch. Thank you. Now, if somebody's coming down pit road, well, that's Chad Little who goes under him. No yellow so far if Davey can get the car moving.
He has it moving. Harry would love to have had a caution here right now, Harry Gant, but he's not going to get it.
Allison's car is moving in the backstretch, so no caution. And a tough break for Harry Gant.
Well, yeah, it's tough in a sense, but it did let him move away a long way ahead of Dale Earnhardt, who now is the leader.
Now almost a caution flag. Yeah, let's take a look as Davey goes in the corner on the inside of Ernie. Ernie gets the car a little bit sideways, goes up and bumps Davey. And around goes Davey, gets down on the grass, and folks, he almost went back across that racetrack.
Boy, he sure did. There was a lot of oncoming traffic, and Chad Little had to move to the inside. Here's Rusty Wallace. Look at him blow by Mark Martin. Rusty moves to second. Mark back to third. Let's go to Jerry Punch very quickly.
Gentlemen, a lot of concern here in the pits about the tires that have just come off a couple of the lead cars. This is the right rear tire off of Rusty Wallace's car. You see it's beginning to separate and come apart. The right front and right rear on Rusty's car had the same problem. Likewise, Dale Earnhardt's right side tires, both times he pitted, had this exact same problem. So they're getting a little bit concerned here in the pits.
All right.
As they should, because that does not get any better. It doesn't just get there and stop. It keeps going and going until the tread starts flying off the tire.
Dale Jarrett with Lake Speed.
He's running in 5th place. Jarrett is now. Speed is a lap down. Jarrett trying to move around him on the outside. Rick Mast is right there, chomping at the bits to move around. And Lake Speed does get out of the way now, and both of them let him go.
Jerry Punch reported that Rusty and Dale Earnhardt both had problems with their tires. There's probably some cars down there that can run as hard and not have any problems. It just depends on the chassis setup. And somebody down there is going to be able to run all day. Maybe it's Harry Gant, maybe someone else in the field, and not have a tire problem.
Looking back on Rick Mast. Now looking ahead to Rick Mast from the Phillips 66 in-car camera, carried by Lake Speed. And there's Richard Petty sticking his nose into the race.
And the yellow flag is out, so Harry Gant got the break he needed. He'll get you all the way around and come back.
We're not sure what the yellow is for. We don't see any cars sideways out there. Could be for debris on the racetrack. It is indeed for debris on the racetrack. So Harry Gant gets the break that he needed. There is the debris that we referred to. As yellow flag number 7 comes out to slow once again the Haynes 500 Winston Cup race from Martinsville Speedway in Virginia. Track Facts are brought to you by Quaker State. The Big Q is one tough motor oil.
Gear ratios are critical to a car's performance at the racetrack. Now, the rear end is comprised of two components, the primary housing and the third member, which houses the guts or gears of the rear end. And in this third member, you see the ring gear and the pinion gear, and it's that ratio which gives you the differing gear ratios. Now, let's show you a little bit what we're talking about here with Waddell Wilson. Waddell, we've got a 300 gear and a 633 gear from Talladega and Martinsville. What's the big difference?
Okay, at Martinsville, we'll turn the engine like 6.3 times versus the wheels one time. And that means like in the corner, we'll be down to 4,500 RPMs. Down the straightaway, we'll get up to 8,500 RPMs, which will mean right around 100 miles an hour. Then we go from there to Talladega, we'll turn the engine 3 times versus the rear wheels once. And this means with a restrictor plate, we're turning the engine about 7,000 RPMs. And all the time we're trying to come up to the right ratio, which suits the engine, to make the distance so that the engine will stay together and get good fuel mileage at the same time. So it's always a critical point to make sure we get the gear ratio right in the car.
Just one of the many differences we'll see between this week and next week at Talladega. Half mile versus 2.6. Green flag comes back out. We're back to racing with Dale Earnhardt. Still continuing to lead. Rusty Wallace is second, then Mark Martin, Darrell Waltrip, and Dale Jarrett.
McMaster 6th, Jeff Bodine 7th, Kyle Petty 8th, and Alan Kowicki 9th, and 10th is Ricky Rudd.
Now, we talked about how much the engine turns, the RPMs. There's the tachometer. You can see the RPMs go to about 4,000 and up
There's
to
7, 8, 8,400.
Kyle Petty is involved in a spin.
And the caution flag is out. Quick caution.
Yeah, it was. Those cars got themselves righted quickly, and Kyle turned down the backstretch pit road, but nevertheless, the caution flag comes out once again. And the 25 car of Ken Schrader, battered and beaten as it is going to go back in competition. Ken was involved in an incident a few laps ago with Mark Martin, but they have the necessary repairs made to at least get the car back out onto the track and to get some more Winston Cup points. 8th caution period of the day is upon us. This must be football season here. We saw some guys sitting in the stands that are professional football players, and we welcome to the booth Steve Largent, former Seattle Seahawk. You're a race fan, aren't you?
I enjoy it. I sure do. I have become a race fan.
This is the second year in a row you've been here as the Grand Marshal.
That's right. I'm doing some work with the Haynes Company, and they obviously sponsored this race. And it's really exciting for me to come here and get a chance to go in the pits and see what's all the things that happen behind the scenes. You watch a race on TV, and you really can't capture, as good a job as you guys do, you can't capture the feeling of being here at one in person and feeling that rumble in your chest as the cars go around the track.
Where do you live, Steve?
I live in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma.
I thought maybe if you lived out in the Northwest, you'd be familiar with that weather we've had around here for the last month.
I recognize these clouds.
Do you get to very many races, or is this pretty much the only one you get to attend during the year?
Well, I don't get to as many races as I would like to. It's like I said, it's a lot of fun. It's you just never know what's going to happen. Every potential of something exciting going on.
Well, you can say that again as the green comes out and we go back to racing.
King trying to get his lap back. Racing Rusty pretty hard down in turn 3.
Ernie Irvin is charging up through the field.
Running the back bumper, Michael Waltrip.
18 cars still being shown in the lead.
Ooh, Richard and Rusty get together up in turns 1 and 2. Rusty drives away, but that was close.
Mickey Gibbs trying the outside in 24.
Darrell Waltrip back to winner last week in North Wilkesboro, lurking.
He's running strong in 3rd place. Let's take a look at that incident between Petty and Rusty Wallace as they went into the first turn.
Down in turn 1, this is almost identical to what happened to Ernie Irvin and Davey Allison just a moment ago. Richard gets a little bit sideways, and to save it, he has to move up the hill. Rusty was there.
Richard is 19th, 1 lap down. Oh, Mickey Gibbs dirt tracking it around turn 2. And look at this pack of cars. Jeff Bodine is in there, so is Lake Speed and
Chad Little. On the inside.
Ernie Irvin, Hut Strickland.
Jimmy Spencer just came into the picture. Now we're looking back at Jeff Lodine's car from Lake Speed's car. It's the old 66 car that Lodine almost went up and said, hey, let me look a little closer here.
A nose full of Thunderbird there.
You have a favorite, Steve?
Well, of course, it's Dale Jarrett, isn't it?
Well,
isn't he nice?
Boy, that 4 car is beat up, and it's got extensive damage on the right side, and the bumper is not the way it should be either there in the back.
Jeff Bodine gets on the inside of Lake Speed. Now here comes Ernie on the inside of Jeff.
No, he got back off. Yeah, he did. I think NASCAR has an eye on him because of all of that damage done to that car. They've already penalized him 2 laps.
You know, Steve, there is a age-long controversy as to whether race drivers are athletes. Now, what's your opinion of these guys out there doing what they're doing?
Well, last year I was asked that same question. And, you know, if you measure athletes in terms of how high they jump and how fast they run, then maybe some of these guys wouldn't qualify as world-class athletes. But certainly when you talk about concentration, hand-eye coordination, reaction, response time, these guys do it all. And, boy, my hat's off to them to be able to come out here and concentrate for several hours at a time like they have to do after they've just spent hours of the week before shaking hands with fans. Even right before the race down the pits, I see guys signing autographs and then be able to turn immediately and go into doing what they're doing right now is amazing to me.
That 5 car driven by Ricky Rudd is running well.
And the patience that you have to have a race car like Ricky Rudd has, to get behind some slower cars, behind someone that's slower than you, have to sit back there and not crash your car just for the sake of getting by.
Rudd has fought his way back from the pack several times today. As we mentioned, he is getting on the backstretch, which is a disadvantage because he can't come into the pits during those cautions until after the guys on the front stretch have already come into the pits.
Look at this 3 abreast off the corner. It was Kyle Petty with Brett Bodine and Alan Kowicki.
There's old Harry, handsome Harry again, back on the move. Back in the lead lap.
He is on the lead lap, but about a half a lap behind the leader, Dale Earnhardt.
Benny, unlike Ricky Rudd, I never had to worry about being behind somebody that was slower than I was.
I mean, you can imagine just how frustrating it is to be out there on this racetrack and behind the slower car and can't get by them. Have to show a tremendous amount of patience.
I can only imagine.
Only imagine.
Maybe Allison right in the middle of that pack. Brett Bodine going into the turn.
Brett Bodine there, the 26 car, is running 13th.
Harry Dent moving up on him.
Now Rudd and Jimmy Spencer are side by side, with Michael Waltrip ahead of them, and Rudd passes Jimmy Spencer. That moves him up to 9th place. Ricky Rudd is now 9th. Kyle Petty racing with Morgan Shepherd.
Fellas, we were talking about those back pits. This will come into play as we go a little bit deeper into this race. Of the 16 cars that are pitting on the front stretch, 7 of them are already 1 or more laps down. So that means that those cars, there can only be 9 cars at this point, come into the pits at one time, which again is going to be an advantage to those guys.
It gives them more room when they come in.
Yep.
Dale Jarrett and Jeff Bodine
battling for 4th. Bodine in 5th. Jarrett in 4th at the moment, but Bodine has run him down and trying to make a pass. Bodine is one of those pitting on the backstretch.
just moved past the 200 lap mark.
Looking out the back of Dale Jarrett, Sitco Ford. Boy, Jeff wants by. You can tell when the cars move inside, outside. He's just looking for the best way.
He might have the run off of turn 4. I think Jarrett will let him go going into turn 1. He's not going to fight him.
There's Bodine. And from the roof cam, we see him touch as they come out of the corner, but Jeff Bodine does pass Dale Jarrett.
So that moves Jeff into fourth. Jarrett in fifth. Rick Master still sixth.
Today's average only 70.97 miles an hour because of the 8 caution periods we had, about 11 miles an hour slower than the lap record at the 200 lap mark.
Now Ricky Rudd just moved around Hut Strickland as Michael Walter tries to move up on him. That'll move Rudd into the 7th position. You're watching 8th and 9th there now. Then there's Kyle Petty in 10th and the number 98 of Jimmy Spencer in 11th.
Kyle just made that pass going in turn 3. Now had his eyes set on the 30 car of Michael Walter.
Those guys are big buddies off the track, Michael and Kyle. Probably don't even know him out there.
Some little problems in these corners could ruin some friendships, I'll tell you.
Now Michael gets his nose under Hut Strickland. Michael Walter trying to move up.
And Kyle Petty will follow.
Michael makes the pass. Now so does Kyle going into turn 1. Bobby Allison owned car driven by Hut Strickland, number 12. And now Kyle Petty moves to the inside of Michael Waltrip, and he passes Michael.
And by the way, folks, Dale Earnhardt is still leading the race.
He's just out in front all by himself, so we want to show you the good close racing action. He does lead by almost a half a straightaway over Rusty Wallace, and then Wallace has about a half a straightaway lead over. There's Rusty, and you can see the interval between Rusty and third place, Darrell Waldrop. So there isn't a whole lot of activity up front. We're showing you the action on the track. And the 98 and 12 cars seem to be closest out there, Jimmy Spencer and Hut Strickland. We'll be back with more coverage of the Haynes 500 here at Martinsville Speedway in Virginia with 208 laps completed. Dale Earnhardt leads the Haynes 500 here at Martinsville with 214 laps completed, leading Rusty Wallace and Darrell Waltrip.
Seems like I've seen this movie before. Dale Earnhardt leading the race, Rusty Wallace running second, or vice versa.
Back here with Jimmy Spencer and Davey Allison and Michael Waltrip. That continues to be the best racing on the track at the moment.
And Davey Allison still has one of the fastest cars on the track, fellas. Of course, when he spun out, he went all the way to the rear, but now has fought himself and fought his way back up into the top 10. And just continues to pick off one car and then the other. And as Benny said earlier, that is tough to pass on this racetrack.
Now he goes by Michael Waltrip, so he's passed 2 cars in 2 laps.
Davey Allison from a famous racing family, right, Jerry Punch?
That's exactly right, Bob. You know, you might think that a young driver's last thoughts before getting into a car would be about the chore at hand, running a 500-lap race on a very tough half-mile track, but that's not the case for Davey Allison. What kind of young man is he? Well, the last thing he said before getting in the race car was, hey, my thoughts are with my grandfather, EJ Pop Allison, who just came home from surgery this week and is not here today. He is home watching on ESPN, and if I can do it today, it's going to be for Pop.
And we wish him our best, too, from everybody on the ESPN broadcast team. Hey, here's Jeff Bodine alongside Darrell Waltrip. This is the battle for third position as Bodine grabs it away from Darrell.
And Steve and I was talking on the commercial break. Darrell didn't contest him because he's got to buy those fingers.
We're talking with football great Steve Largent here in the booth, who is the Grand Marshal of the Haynes 500. I've always wondered, what's the responsibility of the Grand Marshal?
I was wondering that same thing, Bob. All I know is that I got a 15-minute coaching lesson on how to say, gentlemen, start your engine.
You did a fine job, too, I might say.
I think maybe football players have a bad rap or something.
Did you know there was a couple of the Washington Redskins sitting in the stands today?
How could you miss them?
We had them on camera earlier. Couple of the Hogs, they were not friends of yours, were they?
Well, fortunately, I didn't have to get on the field at the same time as those 2 guys were playing. They're great. They still are great players.
Jeff Bodine in the Budweiser Ford is third now. He's was 17th at the end of 50 laps, then 11th at the end of 100, 5th at the end of 150, and here on the 221st circuit, he has moved to 3rd place.
That's the 20 car, Bobby Hillin.
There you can see the interval between Jeff Bodine and the leader, Dale Earnhardt, as he heads down the backstretch, drops the car into the groove in turn 3.
Watch Earnhardt. He's running the car right on the bottom of the racetrack. Remember earlier, Harry Gant, well, he didn't run on the bottom down that corner. I thought he did in 3 and 4, but he's running about the same groove that Harry Gant did earlier.
We're going to take another field snapshot here as Earnhardt comes off the 4th corner and onto the straightaway. We'll time the lap, and you can see the interval between Earnhardt and your favorite driver as he passes by.
There's Rusty Wallace in 2nd. Here comes Jeff Bodine in 3rd.
It's about 5 seconds behind Earnhardt. The rest of the field comes down. There's Kyle and Davey and Joe and Dale, Rick Mast, Spencer.
Harry Gant. Along with Brett Bodine.
Bill Elliott's back in the race, as Ned said. Charlie Gloss back in the 22 car and 22 seconds flat.
Exactly, and that translates to a speed of 86.072 miles an hour compared to a 91 mile an hour qualifying lap for the pole sitter, Mark Martin. We are nearing the halfway point, only 25 laps away from the halfway mark as 225 have been put on the scoreboard. Dale Earnhardt is the leader of this race. Bright sunshine now here at Martinsville as we continue our coverage of the Haynes 500.
What does that flag mean that they're using right now? The blue and gold?
That's a move over flag, Steve. That tells the slower cars that the faster cars are approaching, and they should move over and give them the racetrack.
A question from Steve Largent, the Grand Marshal for today's Haynes 500, answered by, and there is the flag that you had a question about. Now, that's what they call a courtesy flag, and it just signals a driver that someone faster than you would like to get by.
The racers call it the move over flag.
There is the leader of the race, Dale Earnhardt. We're 18 laps away from the halfway point as Michael Waldrop there in the middle in car number 30. The 1 car of Rick Mast and the 98 of Jimmy Spencer run close together on the racetrack.
Jerry Punch, what kind of questions do you have of our guest, Steve Largent?
Hey, guys, I was always a big Steve Largent fan with the Seahawks. I mean, what courage this guy had to go out there among those headhunters, the defensive secondary, and make the kind of catches he made. But, you know, when I really realized what kind of courage he had is when I saw him make that underwear commercial for Haynes. I mean, that's what I call courage, guys.
I just say that was my son in his underwear. I had my sweats on. My wife said I couldn't do that.
You know the Jim Palmer, is that what?
No. And I will not be attempting a comeback either.
Big Mast, Skull Classic. Got out of shape or something coming off the corner, and Brett wound up on the outside.
Rick has been drifting back a little bit. A number of cars have passed him in the last 8 or 10 laps, including Jimmy Spencer and Michael Walker. Now Brett Bodine, Morton Shepard about to go by on the outside, and then there's Harry Gant.
Morgan on the outside. Here comes Harry.
Brett unofficially 11th at this point. Ernie Irvan and Richard Petty have found each other on the racetrack. Jerry, what's the latest on Irvan?
We are told that Ernie Irvan is ill in the race car, and he has requested to get a relief driver to somehow let him get out of the car for a little bit. So the NASCAR officials have talked to some of the other crews, and we are told that they are possibly looking for Dick Trickle to get in the car. Ernie Irvan, again, the car is beaten and bagged up. We would just surmise, and again, this is pure speculation, that he may be getting some heat inside the cockpit of the car, maybe a little bit of fumes, and thus needs to get out of the car. But for whatever reason, he is ill and needs to climb out pretty soon.
Dick Trickle, of course, began the race but dropped out early, so they apparently are looking for him as a possible relief driver.
See the damage on the right side of that car? What that does is knock the fender wells out. The heat comes inside the car from off the racetrack, and right now it's so hot in there that Ernie obviously just can't stand it.
We talked in the very opening of the show about how hot and humid it was here today, and that certainly could play a factor in the driver's ability, especially when the car is banged up like that.
Yeah, this is one of the most humid days we've had in this season. And as hard as you have to work on this half-mile track, it's very, very tough on the driver.
Second and third right here. That's Rusty and Jeff Bodine, 2 and 11.
Bob, excuse me, Dad. I was going to say, talking to some of the drivers before the race, they said that they can lose upwards of 10 pounds in the course of one of these races. So you can imagine the type of heat and the temperatures that they're experiencing.
They will lose that much, Steve, even though they drink fluid about every pit stop.
Let's take a look at a Big A Auto Parts on-track interval between Dale Earnhardt, the leader, and Jeff Bodine in third. Now, we timed 5 consecutive laps, 2:28 to 2:32, and Earnhardt had 22.2. Pretty consistent there, only varied about 0.2 of a second. Jeff Bodine, meanwhile, was a little bit faster, especially there for 3 laps, cutting the interval from 4.7 seconds on lap 228 to a little over 3 seconds on lap 232.
It looks like that Jeff Bodine or Davey Allison might have the fastest cars on the racetrack at this point of the race.
Yeah, Davey Allison has moved into fourth as we were watching some of those other battles, and Jeff Bodine is running very, very fast, so those 2 cars are among the fastest there. We see Dick Trickle there now in Ernie Irvin's pit, so they're ready to make that change. They would like to do it during a caution period.
He's talking to someone, telling him to go get his helmet, get his goggles, get his gloves. Well, it's nice to have a valet, isn't it?
And there is the car that he will be stepping into. Jerry?
Well, the concern here is that they want to make sure he can reach the pedals. You know, Dick Trickle is not nearly as tall as Ernie Irvin, and these seats are form-fit. And let me start get a comment. Dick, I saw you motioning to the crew. Are they going to get you a cushion or something to sit on in the seat?
I guess the car is real hot, see, so we're gonna put something underneath my butt maybe and keep it from getting too hot in it. I guess the car just got, maybe the panels are knocked out or something. It's just getting real hot in it.
Well, that is indeed the case. As you called it, Benny Parsons, the panels are knocked out. A lot of heat in that car. And Ernie Irvin, who is from Southern California, is accustomed to the heat, but nothing like what he's experiencing right now. So under the yellow flag, if they can get a caution very soon, they will bring him in, and Dick Trickle will climb in that car.
You could say Ernie Irvin's on the hot seat right now as he is looking for the caution that will allow him to come in and get the relief driver. There is Earnhardt continuing to lead. The 21 car of Dale Jarrett, the 98 of Jimmy Spencer.
Yeah, Jarrett's car is beginning to slip and slide a little bit on the racetrack. He almost lost it last time around coming off of turn 4. Now Spencer moves around, and here comes Michael Waltrip moving around.
8th, 9th, 10th, and 11th here. That would put Spencer in 8th, Michael Waltrip 9th, Dale is in 10th, and then Brett Bodine in 11th position. Here is the side cam on Brett's car, the Quaker State side cam, as he moves to the inside of Jarrett.
Jarrett's car, they're off sequence as far as pit stops are concerned. They have made a right tire change, and then one other caution, they made a left tire change. The right sides have been in that car for a long, long time. Apparently that's beginning to tell on.
Brett Bodine makes the pass down in turn 1. Now Dale, don't look behind you because Morgan Shepherd's back there.
Still being shown in the lead lap.
We would like to extend our congratulations and our thanks to Steve Largent for joining us here in the broadcast booth for a little while. We know that you have other obligations in your duty as Grand Marshal, but thanks for stopping by and keep watching the races.
I'll do it. Thank you, Bob, Benny, Nat. Enjoyed it.
Good to see you, and
you're welcome to stay and listen as long as you want to.
I'll go listen on the TV.
All right, good.
Thank you, fellas.
Steve Largent, Grand Marshal of the Haynes 500 here at Martinsville. As the laps continue to click off, we have reached the halfway point. The cross flags are being shown right now. 250 laps have been completed. At the halfway point is Dale Earnhardt, who is leading this race. Here is Morgan Shepherd going to the inside of Dale Jarrett. And Morgan now moves into 11th position. Dale drops back to 12th.
And then
there's Dale. He has things all to himself at the moment, leading Rusty Wallace. Third position is Jeff Bodine, then Davey Allison and Kyle Petty. Just as you rejoin us, the yellow flag comes out because of Chad Little's crash here on the main straightaway. He hit the inside retaining wall. The yellow flag comes out for the 9th time this afternoon. Chad bumped the inside retaining wall, but then got it straightened out and kept going, but nevertheless the caution is out.
Bad timing as far as Mark Martin and Harry Gann are concerned. Dale Earnhardt had just passed them not long ago.
Let's take a look at our Western Auto race recap to the moment as the field is slowed under the caution flag. Dale Earnhardt, the leader, led 115 of 250, 8 cautions for 35 laps, 15 cars on the lead lap, the average speed just a little over 73 miles an hour. Here come the pit stops. We'll resume the Western Auto race recap after we watch these pit stops by Dale Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace. Here's Jerry.
Our leader, Dale Earnhardt, brings that Goodwrench Chevrolet in, and the crew are really excited about getting a chance to take a look at these right side tires. And Rusty Wallace also in further up pit road. Camera backing now on Earnhardt. They're changing the left side tires. David Smith with the jack. Left side tires being rolled up there. The crew wanted to get a chance to look at the rubber on these tires. Remember, Earnhardt and Rusty Wallace both experiencing some existing wear on the right side. Earnhardt now leading. Take a look down pit road. A lot of action in pit road, and you see that Tyson Ford of Chad Little still sitting in the pits as Darrell Walter makes his way toward turn 1 in the Western Auto Chevrolet.
Brett Bodine comes out of the pit area. So does Alan Kulwicki. Dale Jarrett. As Dale Earnhardt continues to lead, now we go back to the rest of the Western Auto race recap. The lap leaders have been Gant, Earnhardt, Allison, and Kyle Petty. Out of the race, only 2 cars officially. Dick Trickle, who's standing by in relief for Ernie Irvin, and Terry Labonte. Now our standings for the Western Auto Mechanic of the Year. Waddell Wilson is on top by only 3 points over Larry McReynolds. Now with the Davey Allison team, Tony Glover from Ernie Irvin's team is 3rd in the standings. Then Coach Shelmerdine from Dale Earnhardt and Andy Petrie on the 33 car. And speaking of that driver change, here is Dick Trickle getting in for Ernie Irvin.
There's Ernie already out of the car over on pit wall as they hook up the safety paraphernalia to Dick Trickle.
Well, we have reached the halfway point of the race. All phone-in entries for this week's ESPN Pick the Winning Chevy Sweepstakes are now closed. The winner of the sweepstakes will be announced in our next Chevy Sweepstakes race on June 2nd. Call 1-900-933-9300 in 10 minutes to enter the next ESPN Chevy Sweepstakes.
You know, it's amazing. Dick Trickle got in the 4 car. Remember last week in North Wilkesboro when Dick Trickle crashed? Remember who made contact? He in the 4 car. So this week he's trying to help him out.
Back down to Jerry Punch.
Well, getting cooled off here for a minute. Ernie, first of all, are you okay?
Yeah.
What actually happened? What's wrong?
Well, we knocked all the inner panels out. For some reason, this car is real hot. It just kept blowing heat on my face. I couldn't get no cool air. Just couldn't breathe.
There was a lot of contact early in the race, and I know they held you a couple laps in the pits. Your side of the story, we were told that there were a lot of lap traffic in front of you, just having trouble getting by.
Yeah, Ruttman's right in the way, and we just couldn't get by him, and I got pinched up into HUD. It wasn't HUD's fault, and I don't think it was my fault, just racing.
Ernie Irvin has climbed down to the car. We'll let him get some fresh air. And, of course, we are here at Martinsville Speedway, 262 laps of the Haynes 500. We'll be back with more racing from Martinsville after this word from our sponsors. Don't go away.
The Haynes 500 live from Martinsville Speedway in Virginia. 264 of 500 laps completed. It's Earnhardt, Wallace, Waltrip, Bodine, and 5th, Davey Allison. Our Speed World coverage is being brought to you by Levi's 505 and 540 jeans for men. By Wagner Power Painting that's not just a whole lot faster, but a whole lot better. And by Kodacolored Gold Film. Show your true colors. And speaking of colors, the green just came out here at Martinsville to resume our racing with Dale Earnhardt leading Rusty Wallace.
Earnhardt had some trouble with his tires sticking down in turn 1 on that first lap. I thought Rusty was going to get fine, but didn't work.
There's Darrell Waltrip in 3rd spot. Another good showing for Dale. And let's go to John Kernan, who has some information on some different type brakes that are being run by Darrell today.
Well, Bob, I would like to show you the brake right now, but what it is, it's made with stainless steel and also ceramic cloth. So it acts as a heat shield between the rotors and the calipers. It's very important. Darrell running very well. He's in third right now. This last pit stop, they took on 4 tires and made a chassis adjustment on the right rear because the car had gotten very loose all of a sudden on him.
All right, you can see he has moved from 16th to 3rd. Now there's Harry Gant right behind Waltrip. However, Harry is a lap down.
Yes.
Just went a lap down before that most recent caution.
That's right. He had gotten left under just green flag racing. His car was not working nearly as well as it was earlier in the race, and he went a lap down.
13 cars shown on the lead lap at the moment. Among the cars that are a lap down at this point, the pole sitter Mark Martin. The 11 car of Jeff Bodine is running in 4th position. 5th is the 28 of Davey Allison. 6th position is the 42 of Kyle Petty.
I'm really anxious seeing these cars together because this is the first time today these 3 cars have been together. They have been awfully fast. All 3 of them at times during the day felt like they were the fastest car on the racetrack. Maybe they can settle it on the racetrack as to who is the fastest.
That's 4th, 5th, and 6th we're looking at.
And we're watching from the lap car of Lake Speed, the Phillips 66 in-car camera.
We can see Darrell Waltrip up there. Harry Gant was able to get by him. Now only Wallace and Earnhardt in front of Harry. He can get by them, maybe get his lap back.
Mark Martin and Alan Kowicki run side by side. Kowicki's on the lead lap. Mark isn't.
Mark had just gone a lap down, about 2 laps before this last caution came out.
And there's Rudd, who is in 9th. Kowicki is 8th.
Right behind them is Jimmy Spencer, who's running in 10th position. Right behind him is Dale Jarrett, who's running 11th. Morgan Shepherd right behind him in 12th. And in fact, Morgan is right beside Jarrett now, trying to take over 11th. Michael Waltrip is the last car in the lead lap.
Dale Jarrett, Michael Waltrip. Another car that we've talked about being fast all day, Ricky Rudd in that Tide Chevrolet.
Current Winston Cup points leader by 97 over the leader of the race, Dale Earnhardt.
Mark Martin's crew. The last caution flag, he came in the pits and they had a water hose. Looked like they were squirting on the brake rotors, trying to cool them off. So evidently Mark is having a little bit of brake problems. Jerry Punch, what were they doing down there? Do you know?
Well, you're exactly right, Benny. When Mark was involved in that little shunt early on with Harry Gant, he knocked all the scoops and vents off the right front. So they have no air whatsoever going to that right front brake hub, and they're concerned about the brake just overheating and rolling and boiling that brake fluid. And certainly you don't want to boil the brake fluid here when you need those brakes so desperately at a racetrack like Martinsville. But they are boiling hot out there right now with some competition as Jimmy Spencer has his hands full.
He certainly does. That's a battle for position, and it is Morgan Shepherd that moves into 10th spot. Jimmy Spencer goes back to 11th. Dale Jarrett is in 12th spot, and here is Davey Allison and Darrell Waltrip.
And they're battling for 4th position.
That's the 3rd spot. Davey takes it away.
And there's Kyle Petty coming into the picture also.
Darrell is now 4th. Kyle is 5th.
Morgan Shepherd is off the pace going into turn 3. Something has happened to the Motorcraft Ford. He had just made a pass, but now is going behind the wall, it looks like.
There he is, Morgan Shepherd. Had to take a provisional to get in the field. Look at Kyle Petty. He passes Darrell Waltrip.
Takes 4th spot away, moves DW back to 5th.
Morgan Shepherd, we're talking about, had 6 top 10 finishes in a row. But it doesn't look like he will be able to finish here today. Certainly not in the top 10.
lead continues to be held by Dale Earnhardt. He doesn't have very much traffic around him.
We saw the car right behind him. That is Harry Gant, who was able to get by Rusty Wallace a few laps ago and is closed up almost to Dale Earnhardt.
Yeah, he's inching in on him, no question about it. Here's 28. Davey Allison has caught Rusty Wallace. Mark Martin is in the pits. Unscheduled pit stop. Smoke on the right front of that car. Apparently still having brake problems, but Davey Allison continues to be fast. Here's Mark Martin. Let's go to the pits and Jerry Punch.
Well, Ned, you hit the nail on the head immediately. It's a brake problem. You heard this talk a minute ago about not having the scoop on the right front. A lot of smoke on the racetrack coming out of this Folgers Ford, and NASCAR asked them to come in and take a look at it, and now they're going to try to pull a hose over there. Steve Meal is going to try to squirt some water in the right front brake rotor area and try to cool down the brake fluid. Apparently, it's just getting worse and worse. There's not much you can do, just sit here and try to cool it off.
Mark Martin, coming into this race, was fourth in the point standings, 152 behind the leader, Rudd. They continue to work on that car while Dale Earnhardt has the lead. Behind him is the lap car of Harry Gant. There's Harry, and then the battle for second position. Here is Davey sneaking up once again on Rusty Wallace. He almost had that inside line going into turn 3, but couldn't get it done, and Rusty Wallace staves off the challenge of Davey for the moment. We will continue to watch this battle for you as we take another break.
Here's Dale Earnhardt, our leader, going down the back straightaway. Harry Gant still hasn't caught him. He's about, well, there he is, 4 or 5 car lengths behind. And Davey Allison has been able to get by Rusty Wallace. He is now running second in that Texaco Havlin Ford Thunderbird.
Davey Allison was able to pass Rusty Wallace while we were away on break, and this is how it happened. He got the inside line coming down the front stretch.
Turn 1, Rusty knew he was there, gave him the room. I don't think they even touch colors.
Both black.
Yeah, again, we couldn't be able to tell if they had.
And a couple of other things happened while we were away at break. Alan Kowicki spun to 360 coming out of turn 2, didn't bring out the caution, and Mark Martin pulled his car behind the wall. And it appears as if the $15,200 in unit count bonus money that would have been Mark's had he won the race will go up another $7,600 for next Sunday's Winston 500 at Talladega.
And Chad Lind is also behind the wall as we see this battle. Kyle Petty has caught Rusty Wallace. Wallace in third, Kyle in fourth.
And behind them, the 11 car of Jeff Bodine. There he is, and the 17 of Darrell Waltrip.
Jeff is fifth. Darrell is sixth. Kyle Petty's on the inside.
Trying to do what Davey did a couple of laps ago. He may be able to do it.
Yeah, Rusty gives him room. Should have him going into turn 3. Rusty will back off.
Kyle Petty is now third. Bodine and then Darrell Waltrip.
Bodine in fifth, Darrell in sixth.
Bodine, a 3-time winner here in 5th place. And Darrell Waltrip, who is an 11-time winner here at Martinsville. John Kernan.
Darrell right now is radioed in. He's loose going into the turns, loose coming out of the turns, and once again, he is picking up wheel spin. Now, 2 pit stops ago, they had brought the car in because it was too tight, and they loosened it up. Well, apparently, they may have gotten it just a little bit too loose for Darrell's liking, but he's hanging in there right now.
You know, it's very difficult for the fellows to adjust the chassis for a day like today. Friday and Saturday, the 2 days the cars have been here, it's been very overcast, very cool. Today, sun and very hot, very humid. The racetrack is totally different than anything they've seen so far.
Lake Speed in the number 66 car, and behind him is the 26 car of Brett Bodine. And then here comes Richard Petty and the 5 of Ricky Rudd and the 24 of Mickey Gibbs.
Rudd is running in 8th place. Of course, Richard is lapped down in 14th position.
There's the 98 of Jimmy Spencer, who is 9th. Another good run for Jimmy, who has several laps of experience here in modifieds. There's a 20 car of Bobby Hillen. Dale Jarrett is next on the track, along with Michael Waltrip, and that is a battle for 10th position.
Jarrett in 10th, Michael in 11th. One more car on the lead lap behind them. That would be Alan Kowicki. So only 12 cars now are on the lead lap once Morgan Shepherd dropped out.
Let's go to Jerry Punch, who's with the pole sitter for today's race, Mark Martin.
Well, Mark, the day began pretty well for you from the pole, but things went downhill a little bit. You came together with Harry. Was it the brakes that finally put you out?
No, we lost a cylinder. I think we burned a piston. Everything went wrong, you know. I thought maybe we could win this thing for Folgers, valve leak. Just wasn't meant to be. You know, we were running good, but this thing just went wrong. Happens sometimes.
A lot of heat in the car today.
Something wrong with my car. It's real hot inside. Has been all year. We've got some air getting in it somewhere, hot air, but it's not that bad. Just was a struggle out there with the crashing and banging and behind and brake trouble and smoke and dragging sheet metal and everything. You know, wasn't our day. That's all.
Indeed, it wasn't his day. We'll let Mark get cooled off, get some fluids. And we might mention that Steve Mill, the crew chief on this team, had a problem last night. He passed out on the way home from the racetrack. He got home and passed out again. They took him to the hospital last night to try to diagnose the problem, and we are told that he will go back to the hospital from the racetrack today to get further tests run. So it certainly could be a problem for this team prior to Talladega. Bob?
Thank you, Jerry. And Michael Waltrip passed Dale Jarrett, so Michael Waltrip goes to 10th. Jarrett back to 11th position. It's a warm Sunday afternoon here in Martinsville, Virginia. We'll be right back. Bob Jenkins, Benny Parsons, Ned Jarrett, John Kernan, and Dr. Jerry Punch back at Martinsville Speedway in Virginia, where the Haynes 500 is 308 laps old. And Dale Earnhardt from Kannapolis, North Carolina, holds the advantage on Davey Allison and Kyle Petty.
But that advantage is shrinking as far as Davey Allison is concerned, fellas. He is gaining on Dale Earnhardt.
Don't forget tonight at 8 o'clock. Should be a great American League contest on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball. It's at 8 o'clock. We'll feature the Boston Red Sox against the Kansas City Royals. 8 o'clock tonight, live here on ESPN Sunday Night Baseball.
I thought Wade Boggs was a singles and doubles hitter. When did he start hitting home runs? This year?
Yeah, apparently.
Man, he had won the deep center there at Boston. That's a pretty good test. We talked about all day that Davey Allison was one of the best cars, and I think he's proven it now, because as we see Earnhardt, Davey is now only about a half straightaway behind him, and it seems to be getting closer and closer each and every lap.
Check the interval here. Ooh, look how close it is.
There's Harry Gant, who has fallen back. He's good for about 30 or 40 laps. Then Earnhardt seems to be able to pull away from Harry. There's Rusty Wallace, who drifted back to 4th spot.
Right behind him is Jeff Bodine and Darrell Waltrip.
NASCAR Bill Elliott, just in case you've joined us late, he lost a rear end gear on early in the race. Had to spend about 70 laps in the pits changing it. He's back on the racetrack now, but about 70 laps down.
Let's check the interval this time around between 1st and 2nd. That 7 car, by the way, is the final car on the lead lap, so Alan Kowicki could go a lap down here in just a moment. Checking the interval, just a little over 1 second, Ned.
Yes, and not too long ago he was about 2 seconds behind on my unofficial stopwatch, so Davey Allison definitely is closing in on that.
But the only way Davey can win this race if it goes green the rest of the way, because hit it on the back straightaway, he's going to always end up about 2nd or 3rd on the restarts. 2/10 of a lap.
2/10 of a second, yep.
That's about what he's been doing.
Down to a 1 second interval between 1st and 2nd, Earnhardt and Allison.
Watch Earnhardt go around the racetrack. Jerry Punch called his pit stop just a little bit ago and said David Smith with the jack. I'm glad David is back, because he was not at North Wilkesboro last week, was under the weather.
Boy, you know he had to be under the weather. David Smith, Mr. Race, huh?
You know what his life's ambition has been all of his life?
No.
To be a jackman on a Winston Cup race car.
Well, he's a fine jackman. 1 second again was the interval between 1st and 2nd.
But Davey Allison passed the Ernie Irvin car on that lap, which slowed him just a little bit. Dick Trickle been driving that car before now.
0.6 of a second. Well, that's about 6 car lengths is what it is.
So as this battle shapes up here for first position, we'll take another break and be right back with more live coverage of the Haynes 500. ESPN Speed World live coverage of the Haynes 500 in Martinsville. Here's the battle for the lead. It hasn't changed since we left you. However, it has really heated up.
It may change this next corner, though.
Davey Allison trying to take over the lead from Dale Earnhardt.
Davey, as they go down the back straightaway, he pulls to the inside to get out of Earnhardt's mirror so Dale doesn't know where he is, and hope that Earnhardt will move up the racetrack and he'll be able to drive alongside him on the inside. See?
Yep. He may have him this time as he comes off the corner. He's going to get the car about a half a car length ahead. They'll drag race down the backstretch into 3, but then Davey Allison goes to the front. And the fans are going wild. We talked about the 7 different winners in the first 7 events of 1991. Davey Allison not among those who have visited Victory Lane. He's won the pole twice this year for the first 2 races, but hasn't won an event yet.
And the next 3 cars behind him,
namely Earnhardt,
Kyle Petty, and Rusty Wallace.
Joe Ruttman almost spun down in turn 1, but he got it back in.
There is Joe.
NFL Oldsmobile.
Spun earlier in the race up in the 3rd turn, bringing out one of the 9 caution flags we've had so far. If you're just joining us, we welcome you to Martinsville, Virginia, just about 3 o'clock Eastern Time. We are 326 laps into this race, and Davey Allison has just taken the lead from Dale Earnhardt. Davey started way back in 26th position out of a 32-car field, was 16th at the end of 75, 13th at the end of 150, had moved all the way to 5th at the end of 275, and now finds himself in the lead. And Dale Jarrett goes a lap down.
A little bit of contact up in turn 1. That real problem as Allison drives away.
10 cars now on the lead lap. And Dale Earnhardt now closes in on Dale.
I don't think Dale Jarrett wanted to see the sunshine today.
No.
They had the car set up, as you mentioned earlier, Benny. It's a different racetrack today than yesterday.
The weather here has been greatly changed in the last couple of days. We've had cloudy skies, rain, fog. Today it started out that way, and then suddenly the sun came out, and it's been hot and humid since then. Ricky Rudd and Darrell Waltrip are battling for position. The number 6 car of Mark Martin has returned to the racetrack. Mark Martin back in the race after spending several laps behind the wall.
Rudd takes a spot away now. He's in 6th place.
Waltrip 7th. In 8th place is Brett Ledine. 9th is Jimmy Spencer, and Michael Waltrip 10th.
Those are the only cars on the lead lap. There's Davey. We're going to give you an opportunity to look for your favorite driver again on a field snapshot as Davey comes down the front stretch. He'll time the lap, which not only gives us an indication of how fast he's going, but you can tell how far your favorite driver is behind the leader.
Schrader in his half a car down the front straightaway.
Here comes Rusty, about 9 seconds behind.
There's Rudd and Darrell.
Here comes Brett Bodine, who's on the lead lap, about 16.5 or so behind. And Allison comes off the corner and stops the clock with a 21.8-second lap. That's a little faster than the last time we clocked him. It was 22 seconds then, so he's shaved about 0.2 of a second off that lap.
started Pontiac.
Phillips 66 in-car camera looking ahead to the leader, Davey Allison, and just ahead of him, the king, Richard Petty.
Oh, there's a spin up in Dale Jarrett got into the back of Charlie Glotzback, and the yellow flag is out.
Charlie Glotzback in relief for Sterling Marlin. Hits the wall in turn 4, brings out the 10th caution of the day.
We can see that black mark on the white on the retaining wall there. That's where Sterling's car, Charlie Glotzback, made contact. So he's able to get the car moving again. Well,
yeah, well, he's going to have to back her up again, and
he's having trouble getting it to going to move forward. There he goes.
Marlin moves away. Field is slowed, and Davey Allison may be coming in for a pit stop.
I think most of them will, really. I think that just about everybody will come in because they've been out there a while on these tires. Of course, Davey will have to pit on the backstretch. Earnhardt will get in the pits and out before Davey will be able to do that.
Here is Earnhardt coming in. Jerry Punch is right there.
Dale Earnhardt, what might be his final pit stop. They're looking at the charts right now, but he brings the Goodwrench Chevrolet into a stop, and the crew will going to work to change right side and left side tires. Dale Earnhardt having the kind of day he wanted to have. They have not run well. They would have liked the past few weeks, but just 1 day shy of his 39th birthday, they are going to change all 4 tires here as work continues on the Goodwrench car. Let's check in over into Davey Allison pit with John Kernan.
Jerry, we're back on the back side of the pit. Although Davey was leading, he is just pulled in. They're going to work around the right side. Dale Earnhardt leaves the pits on the front side. They swing around to the left side. They need a really good pit stop here, waiting for Earnhardt to go by. Here he comes out of turn down the backstretch. Davey's work is done, and they are away. But the one thing where Jerry said Dale Earnhardt may have been in for what could be his final pit stop, the 28 car will have to make another pit stop to take on some fuel.
Allison is going to come back onto the racetrack in 2nd position. Now, when we left you, Dale Jarrett with the roof cam, and ahead is Charlie Glotzback, and there's Charlie spinning and hitting the wall in turn 4.
I think Jarrett made a little contact with him going into the turn. Since then, Jarrett's had some kind of a clutch problem. He made pit stops during the caution, but the car didn't take off. It seems to have picked up now, but he lost about 2/3 of the lap.
3rd place battle is between Kyle Petty in 42 and Darrell Waltrip in 17.
Boy, this is a classic Darrell Waltrip race, getting faster and faster as the race wears on.
Biding his time, staying out of trouble, and being at the finish.
And right now is a very good race car, one of the best race cars on the track.
And he's only about a quarter of a straightaway ahead. There is Earnhardt, the leader, and Davey Allison. Now, Dale Earnhardt, of course, pitted on the front stretch during that caution period. He got out first. Davey pitted on the back stretch, but did get out in 2nd position, and that's where he is right now, but just about a car length and a half behind Dale. Let's go to John Kernan, who has a report on Davey Allison.
Bob, you can imagine how frustrating it was for Davey Allison after pulling away to pit here on the backstretch and watch while his guys were working on the car as Dale Earnhardt passed him and took over the lead on the set of pit stop. Well, Davey was a little bit upset about that. He talked with Larry McReynolds on the radio, and they kept reminding him, just calm down, calm down. There's 160-some laps left in this race. Your car will run better the longer you run under green, so just be patient. And when the time comes, you can make your move.
And he is making his move right now, John, to the inside of Earnhardt in the 2nd turn. Down the backstretch they go. And as they go into turn number 3, Allison inches ahead by about a half a car length. Earnhardt does not want to give up the top spot, but Allison does go in front. One thing you might remind the pit crew back there on the backstretch, John, is that the last time Davey won a short track race, he pitted on the backstretch at Bristol last year.
That's right. Sure did. Went green for a long time near the end and worked right to his advantage.
And when they had the caution flags and other teams made pit stops, Davey chose to stay out there. You know, Ned, he might do that. No, he's probably got to stop again before the race is over, but he just might, if he can go the rest of the way on fuel, he may stay out and forego that pit stop.
Well, I think John Kernan said that they had told him that they would have to stop again. So, but that might be a decoy for these other guys. They had about 4 or 5 laps to go when they made their last pit stop. So he might be able to stretch it that far. I don't know.
And Ned Jarrett just mentioned something about that might be a decoy. Well, how could that possibly be a decoy? Because some of these teams monitor the ESPN broadcast to see what the other crew chiefs are telling our reporters, so they'll have some fair idea of what they need to do.
Well, we understand that Davey might end up about 25 laps short as far as fuel is concerned. Earnhardt, well, don't know. Stay tuned.
That's the only way we'll know it. Be there at the end.
And we're only 133 laps away from the finish. Let's go down to Jerry Punch, who has a comment on Earnhardt.
Well, if Dale Earnhardt were to make it all the way, it means you'd have to run 163 laps. Of course, remember, they've had some caution laps. That'll help you a little bit with the gas mileage. They had planned to run about 150 to 155 laps on a tank of fuel, so that means they have to stretch it about 7 more laps, and they might just be able to do it.
We shall see. Right now, Davey Allison is putting some racetrack between himself and Dale Earnhardt.
And Dale Earnhardt, you know, could he be late? No, he's not late. Dale Earnhardt just does not lay back.
It's not his nature.
That's not his nature. And the 42 car, Kyle Petty, is gaining on Dale Earnhardt.
Indeed, and here is a good battle between 17 and 2 as Dale Jarrett is passed once again, but Darrell Waltrip and Rusty Wallace are fighting for position.
Now, fellas, if there's anybody that can get that gas mileage, it is Darrell Waltrip.
Good point. Good point. He may have his second consecutive win.
A lot of ifs.
A lot of ifs.
Rusty on the inside of Darrell down in turn 1. Takes the spot away.
That's 4th. Darrell back to 5th. Bill Sedgwick there in the 76 car. He's one of the guys who has come to the southeast from the Winston West division on the West Coast.
Spears Manufacturing is sponsored on that car. I'm assuming that's a California concern. We welcome him here to Martinsville and the East Coast.
Waltrip closing in on Rusty. And look at Harry Gant back there. Gant again is a lap down in 11th place.
If you've just joined us, that 33 car, Harry Gant, at the beginning of the show, was the dominant car.
As it has been so many times here in the short track season, his finishes certainly don't reflect, though, how well that car has run. He was 23rd at North Wilkesboro last week and 11th at Bristol, 27th at Darlington. The leader of the race is Davey Allison. Now, he is going to fall short being able to complete this race without a pit stop. Now, second place belongs to Dale Earnhardt. He may be able to go all the way, but we won't really know.
If he may be able to go, I guarantee you Darrell Waltrip can go.
42, we think, is going to be about 15 laps short of being able to complete the race. That's Kyle Petty. He's 3rd in the mellow yellow car.
That surprises me that he'd be that short.
4th place, Rusty Wallace.
Now, certainly Rusty has never been his team has never been a gas mileage crew.
They've never won any contest when it comes to fuel mileage, that's for sure.
We're checking on how many we think Rusty might be short. But Darrell Waltrip is the real question mark. There's Harry Gant, the lap car.
I don't think there's a question mark, Bob. I think he can go the rest of the way.
Huh? Okay.
Yeah. And we know that Ricky Rudd can as well.
Jerry Punch.
You guys mentioned a minute ago that a lot of the teams monitor each other's radio, but Jeff Hammond just told me they were going to have to pit one more time for the Darrell Waltrip car, which they have been getting great gas mileage, but they are going to have to pit. And while I'm standing here, guys, a story developing on Dale Jarrett. Dale Jarrett has apparently burned his right foot in the car. Now, Dale has burned that foot before in race cars, but apparently the exhaust pipe in that Citgo Ford is right against the floor pan and it's burning his foot. Dale has been asking, in fact begging to get out of the car because the pain is almost unbearable as quickly as possible. And now they have run down and they have Mark Martin standing by. Mark just ran by me here and is putting his helmet on, willing to help out a fellow competitor. So as soon as they can get Mark suited up, they're going to try to find somehow to put Mark in the car. Remember, Mark is about a foot shorter than Dale Jarrett, and he had a tough time reaching the pedal.
Yeah, there's quite a difference in size of those two guys. Dale Jarrett is quite a big man, and Mark Martin is very short in stature.
If you just think of David and Goliath.
And there is Mark Martin getting set to relieve fellow Ford driver Dale Jarrett. Now here is Ricky Rudd making a move on Darrell Waltrip.
Now there's another one that probably be able to go all the way. That's Ricky Rudd. They get good gas mileage on that car. That's all speculation on our part, but we're just going by past history of some of these fellas. And those two cars you're seeing on the screen right there, they're Hendrick Motorsports cars in the past, but Darrell Waltrip now using Hendrick Motorsports engines, so they still get good gas mileage.
Let's go to Jerry Punch again in Mark Martin's pit.
Well, actually, we're in the Dale Jarrett pit, Bob, but they have found a remedy. They're going to use some high-tech equipment here. They have found 2 bed pillows. They're going to put them underneath Mark Martin so he can reach the pedals and he can drive a race car at the American Ingenuity. Isn't it wonderful?
Funny what they come up with, isn't it?
I tell you something else that they need to get. They need to find out where it's burning Dale Jarrett's foot, and they need to tell Mark he needs to get some styrofoam coffee cups and tape those to his foot at that place, and that will insulate his foot away from the heat.
I'll be darned. That's interesting. Here is Allison in traffic now. He passes Joe Ruttman once again. Joe unofficially shown in 18th position, now 3 laps down.
I know what Dale Jarrett's going through. It's just like putting your foot in a fire. You take it off out of the fire when you get to the corner, and down the straightaway, the fire gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and it really is unbearable.
If Davey Allison could win today, it would be from 26th position and the furthest back for any winner in Martinsville history. In 1959, Lee Petty won the Virginia 500 from 24th starting position.
Well, I don't know if the guy's going to win, but he's obviously got the best car here today.
He sure does. And we are just a little more than 100 laps away from the finish of the Haynes 500 here at Martinsville. Back in a moment. Back at Martinsville, where Davey Allison continues to lead the Haynes 500. Leading Dale Earnhardt, Kyle Petty, Rusty Wallace, and Ricky Rudd. Out of race, Dick Trickle, Terry Labonte, Morgan Shepherd, and Mark Martin. Only 4 cars officially out of this race. Attrition has not been that bad.
It's a shame that the Dick Trickle car had to fall out of the race because those fellows worked 24 hours a day from North Wilkesboro. Remember the crash, folks, he had in North Wilkesboro last week? The car he had here in Martinsville was the same car. And Dick told me that somebody had worked on that car 24 hours a day since Martinsville until they came up here on Friday morning.
Here's a battle for 9th position. Jimmy Spencer takes 9th away from Michael Waltrip.
He finally passed Michael. He's been racing him for at least 300 laps, and he finally got by him.
They have been together a lot today on the racetrack.
Spencer, he was really thrilled with his finish last week in North Wilkesboro. I talked to him down in the pits Friday, Saturday, and very, very happy.
He's en route to his 3rd straight top 10 finish. He was 8th at Bristol and 3rd last weekend in North Wilkesboro. Field snapshot coming up again.
There we see how far behind Earnhardt and Kyle Petty. Kyle Petty has caught Earnhardt. There's Ricky Rudd.
Here comes Darrell.
Jeff Godin, Brett not too far behind him.
Michael Waltrip, Richard Petty.
Here comes Davey back around. 21.7. That's still a pretty good lap at this stage of the game.
He's getting faster all the time.
Yep.
That's 87.2 miles an hour. Now, we told you a little bit earlier that we thought that Kyle was going to come up about 15 laps short on fuel, and Ned said, no way. Well, now they're saying 3 laps. Is that right, John?
That's exactly right. I just talked to Gary Nelson, the crew chief for Kyle Petty. Ask him if he can go to the rest of the way within 3 laps. Now, will they roll the dice and try and stretch it to the end? Kind of just shrug your shoulders. They're not really sure.
Yeah, they will.
Of course, if we should have a caution period, those statistics would all go out the window.
Yep, because everybody could come in and get gas, and they'd have plenty to go the rest of the way.
But if these fellows could go, these fellows that's pitting on the back straightaway like Davey and Kyle, would they give away their track position to go in and change tires? Probably would at this stage of the race, but the closer it gets to the end, the more they might gamble and stay out.
Exactly. Yeah, they still have a little over 100 laps to go, so the way that they have been running on the racetrack, they can make up that difference.
Here is Kyle Petty now, right on the back bumper of Dale Earnhardt. In fact, going inside of Dale. And we may have a new second place runner here in a moment. Kyle takes over second from Dale Earnhardt. Petty is second.
In the Cold Trickle look-alike. Mellow yellow Pontiac.
About a year ago at this time, we were all anxiously awaiting the release of Days of Thunder.
Well, Cold Trickle ran car 51, didn't he? Or
I'm not sure.
Rusty Wallace, we're told, will have to pit again to get some fuel. Cannot go the rest of the way on the fuel he has remaining in his fuel tank.
Now that one doesn't surprise me because they just never have been fuel mileage kings with that team.
Here's the king of fuel mileage.
Yep.
The Hendrick engine people, those people down at Hendrick Engine know how to get some fuel mileage. Kenny Schrader, Ricky Rudd, Darrell Waltrip, all using those engines. And all of them could go as far as anyone on fuel.
Rudd is fifth, and they're second and third, Petty and Earnhardt.
Now, Davey Allison has pulled out about 4.5 seconds ahead of Kyle Petty. Pan around over here and show you where Davey is. We saw them going into turn 1, and Davey had already come off of turn 2.
There's Rick Wilson in the Snickers Buick behind Davey.
I'm convinced there are mind games going on down there because now we're hearing conflicting reports as to who can finish this race on the amount of fuel that he has in the car.
I agree, Bob. I think there are some mind games going on.
17 says they may be able to make it now.
But they say it'll be close. Well, it might be within 2 or 3 gallons, probably.
Yeah.
But so far this year on short tracks, we haven't had that long of a green flag run, so who knows?
Yeah. 36 caution flags. Obviously, they were about every 10 laps.
Well, we're having fewer cautions every race. It was 19 in Bristol, 17 last weekend, only 10 this weekend. There's Jeff Bodine at number 11.
Now that car has been known to get good gas mileage.
And you can see that the record is about 5 miles an hour short. Jeff Bodine won both races last year here at Martinsville and currently runs 7th.
It'd be amazing to believe they could break a record with 10 caution flags in one day.
Rusty Wallace now closing in on Dale Earnhardt for third.
Rusty Wallace, it looks like they've adjusted on that car as the day went on, and he is getting a little bit better as the day goes on. Earlier in the race, Earnhardt was able to pull away from Rusty. Now look, Rusty takes a look. Can't make the pass off turn 4.
I don't think Earnhardt likes these long green flag runs, or his car doesn't.
His car doesn't, that's right. And he's not having a lot of success after about 50 or 75 laps. Perry Gant back behind Rusty. Won by Ted Musgrave, the Alka-Seltzer.
With Jimmy Means not making the race this weekend, the Alka-Seltzer sponsorship went over to Musgrave's car again.
I felt so sorry for Jimmy Means because he had a good fast car and knew he was going to get in the race, but didn't get a chance to prove it yesterday.
And once again, an interval. Yeah, again, we point out that since second day qualifying was rained out yesterday, it wasn't so much that 5 or 4 guys failed to make the field. They didn't have a chance to try to get into the field.
I mean, 4 or 5 cars was not going to make the field, but
exactly.
we don't know which 4 it would have been.
The 98 car, Jimmy Spencer, and the 30 of Michael Waltrip are the final cars on the lead lap. Spencer is in 9th, and then Michael Waltrip, the yellow number 30 car, is in 10th position. 410 laps completed here in Martinsville. We've only got 90 more to go. Now, Rusty Wallace has the inside line on Earnhardt. Off of turn number 4, into turn number 1. Rusty Wallace moves to 3rd place. Dale Earnhardt is back to 4th. Back with more of our live coverage from Martinsville, Virginia, and the Haynes 500 right after this. 85 laps to go, and now there are 9 cars on the lead lap as Davey Allison squeezes inside and passes Michael Waltrip. 9 cars on the lead lap. Davey Allison is the leader.
The 9th place car is Jimmy Spencer, who is right in front of the 28. There, that red car, the backwards frozen food car, Chevrolet. There we go. 4 or 5 car lengths separating the two. The way David's been running, that 4 or 5 car lengths will become about 2 in the next lap.
Take long. Well, David's car is just handling so well, and he has lots of horsepower to pull him off of these corners. He's got everything really working.
And I was going to say that Larry McReynolds, after the Atlanta race, left the Kenny Bernstein team. There's Larry McReynolds. He left Brett Bodine and the Kenny Bernstein team, moved over to the Robert Yates team with Davey Allison. I tell you what, that team has clicked so far.
Yes, they have, and I think they are going to be tough from here on out. How about it, Jerry Punch?
Well, indeed, just look at their track record, Ned and Benny. I mean, the 3 races Larry McReynolds has been there. They finished 2nd at Darlington, 3rd at Bristol, and 6th at Wilkesboro. And I asked Larry, I said, what's been the difference? He said, well, we decided to just take one race car and try to run it every week with the possible exception of Talladega and Daytona. So this is the same car we ran at Darlington, the same car we ran at Bristol and at Wilkesboro, and it's working for us. So you can just tell the fans, you can see this car appearing in a track weekly near you.
And I'll tell you what, that car is also going to be strong next weekend at Talladega. Always strong on the super speedways. Davey Allison. Earnhardt now begins to feel a little bit of pressure from the 5 car of Ricky Rudd for 4th position.
Earnhardt is in 4th. Ricky Rudd trying to move up to take it away.
Darrell Walton is back in 6th place, but he's a full straightaway behind this duo of Earnhardt, Rudd, and the Tide Chevrolet.
Rudd, the winner at Darlington. He was 11th last weekend. He has been out of the top 10 only once this year, and that was at North Wilkesboro last weekend when he finished 11th. Davey Allison now begins to move in on the 9th place car, Jimmy Spencer. Now a Big A Auto Parts on-track interval between Davey Allison, the leader, and Kyle Petty in 2nd. The interval has opened up between laps 414 and 418. The interval went from 3.7 seconds to 4.5.
We can see where Kyle Petty has run some laps as fast as Davey Allison, but look how consistent Davey is. Only 1/10 of a second variance in 5 laps, and Kyle Petty had 6/10 of a second variance in the 5 laps.
How do you subtract all those numbers so fast, Benny? I'd have to get my calculator out here.
I know. That's why I did it. I didn't wait for you.
Dale Jarrett is in the pits, changing rubber on the right side of that car, and the driver change. Don't see Dale getting out of the car, so apparently he's going to tough it out. He's rolling again.
Oh, I feel sorry for you.
Boy. From his bumper cam, there goes Ted Musgrave.
Looks like he's running 400 miles an hour.
There's Allison as he tries to lap the 9th place car of Jimmy Spencer. Jerry, what's the update on Dale Jarrett?
Well, apparently they do have Mark Martin standing by, and Mark sitting in the helmet, but Dale just radioed in and said, hey, I think I can make it. It's my race car. I started it, and I ought to finish it. So you got to give him credit. Chip off the old block when it comes to toughness. He's going to try to hang in there for about 80 more laps.
All right, Dale Jarrett still in competition. Meanwhile, Ricky Rudd and Dale Earnhardt are involved in a side-by-side tussle for 4th position. Rudd on the inside. 431 laps are completed. Davey Allison continues to hang on to the lead. Kyle Petty's running second, followed by Rusty Wallace, Dale Earnhardt, and Ricky Rudd. We hope you're enjoying our Speed World coverage of the Haynes 500, being brought to you by Parts Plus. For name brands you can rely on, go to Parts Plus, America's family of auto parts stores. By Ford and your Ford dealer. Have you driven a Ford lately? And by Quaker State, the Big Q is one tough motor oil. Next week, Sunday afternoon at 2 o'clock Eastern Time, live, we'll be at the world's fastest speedway, Talladega Super Speedway, for the Winston 500. That's live next Sunday. Davey Allison has enjoyed quite good success at Talladega and will be tough to beat next week, as he has been very tough this week. Now he begins to close in on the 8th place car of Brett Bodine. And if Davey can pull off the win here this afternoon, it would break Ford's winless streak for 1991 and keep alive a streak of 8 winners in 8 races.
You know, it was amazing how Ford came on towards the end of last season, winning 5 of 6 or 6 of 7 at the end of the season. And yet here we are, this is the 8th race, and the first 7 they have not won.
Yeah, they say great minds work together. That's exactly the thing I was thinking, that up in Detroit, Lee Morris and Michael Cranifus were sitting there just holding their breath. Please let us win a race. And Herb Fisher was across town holding his breath. Let's have another caution flag, Herbie said.
Chevy has won 5 races so far, and Pontiac has won 2.
Rusty Wallace and Kyle Petty, the 2 Pontiac winners.
There's Dale Earnhardt, who has fallen back to 5th position. An honorary crew member is down in Dale's pit. Here's Jerry again.
Well, we introduced some of the football players visiting today. This is a fellow who is a country music recording artist from Curb Records in Nashville, Tennessee, Delbert McClinton, and a close personal friend of Dale Earnhardt. And Delbert, Dale said you might bring him some luck today, and he's running pretty well.
That's what I'm here for, man. Hoping to, yeah.
You've been a race fan for a long time, though, haven't you?
I've been a race fan. I got to be a race fan through Dale about 2.5 years ago, about 3 years ago. And I can't get enough of it.
Now, you're here at the racetrack. Are you going to make him sing sometime?
Tomorrow's his birthday. Maybe we can get him to sing.
Well, if he wins this thing, we'll make him sing in Victory Lane. How about Delbert?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, Delbert McClinton, an honorary crew member here in the Goodrich pit.
Well, I tell you, we've had football players, we've had country music singers. They're all here this afternoon as Ernie Irvin comes in for another stop.
And we see Ernie getting back in the car.
Dick Trickle had been driving. You see Trickle coming out, and then Ernie told Jerry Punch that there was a lot of heat coming up in that car, and I expected that Dick Trickle has felt it as well.
There you can see the field summary in the upper left of your screen, a complete rundown on who's running where.
Schrader got back in there, and he's picked up some positions, but that's a few points, and you never know what it might mean at the end of the season. Schrader was in 7th place in the Winston Cup point standings coming into this race.
Only 7 cars now on the lead lap as Davey has been able to pass Brett Bodine. And there's the view from Brett's Quaker State Buick in-car camera. Davey approaches Bill Sedgwick once again. Let's see how far Davey is in front of 2nd place Kyle Petty. Here comes Kyle out of the corner, and crossing the line, stopping the clock at 4.4 seconds.
All right, let's remember that, Bob, if you can. Let's remember that. And later on, let's check again and see, because I'm not sure that the 42 car is not gaining.
Well, he might be. You know, I said a while back when Kyle moved into second that he was a little over 4.5 seconds behind, so now he's a little less than 4.5, so doesn't seem to be a great deal of difference in those two cars.
4.2, so he's gained 0.2 of a second that one lap. There, Ernie back in the race in the 4 car.
He has a new lease on life, it looks like. We'll do it again. Check the interval. It's going to be less than 4.2, I bet you. Yeah, 3.9.
So Kyle Petty is getting closer and closer.
Shaved a half second off in the last 2 laps.
Yep. Now look at Ernie Irvin with those new tires, just motored right on around Davey Allison. Not only didn't resist him.
Not only new tires, but a fresh body.
Yep, that's a good point too. He's been sitting there for an hour or so and cooling off, and that makes a difference.
That's almost a second in the last, 3 laps.
3.7 second interval between the leader, Davey Allison, and Kyle Petty, and he is closing in. Davey Allison holds on to the lead by a little over 3 seconds on Kyle Petty, and we anticipate a pit stop by Davey Allison with about 19 more laps. We understand he's planning to come in around lap 470, and right now it's 451.
He is not running as fast as he was earlier. Those tires are getting hotter, for one thing. Now, when we went away for the break, Kyle Petty was closing on him. It was about 3.7 the last time. Let's check it again now as Davey comes off turn 4. Here comes Kyle back there in the green-nosed car. Well,
now he's lost a little bit.
Yep.
I wonder if they've told him that he was gaining on him and he is standing on the gas a little bit more, but he has to stop. Does Kyle Petty have to stop? Does Rusty Wallace have to stop? Those are the unknowns that we don't know right now. We do know that Davis going to have to stop. They told us that he's going to stop around 470, but we don't know about some of the other players.
And speaking of the battle between 2 and 5, Rusty Wallace and Ricky Rudd, there it is. This is for 3rd position. Now Michael Waltrip is also running with Rudd and Wallace, but he is not on the lead lap.
That's right. He is 1 lap down. And Harry Gant, I believe, about to take a position away from him because Michael Waltrip and Harry Gant are in the same lap. They're each 1 lap down. Yeah, and they're battling for 10th place, so that is a battle for position, for 10th position behind the battle for 3rd.
Davey Allison is off the pace in turn 4. He's way up high on the racetrack, and everybody passing by him.
Looks like he's got is that right front tire flat? Yes,
sure
it is.
Yes. The right front tire is definitely flat. What a tough break for Davey Allison. The car had run so great here all afternoon. There's the crew.
He went down in the corner too hard. The car wouldn't turn. Now he's stuck on the outside. He's in front of Kawicki.
Oh, he pulls right in front of Kawicki, causing Allen to spin.
And the yellow flag is out.
Let's go to John Kernan.
Davey brings the car in. They will go right side. They were planning on changing right side tires in about 13 more laps. And then he had, you got to see the smoke coming off. As you can see, the tire that went flat, that blew out. They are putting the right side tires on. Davey's still waiting. Now he will get away. But you can see some contact behind the left rear wheel, although I don't think the sheet metal has been in on the tire, so it should be okay.
But John, he did go a lap down while he was in the pits, so a tough break for Davey Allison here with not enough laps to go to make up a lot of time, but we'll see the others come into the pits now.
See, now the spotter on the 28 car should have told him they were a lap down. They should have went ahead and changed the left sides. Jerry punches down with Rusty Wallace.
Jimmy Maycar was not happy to see that yellow flag come out. They had just calculated they were going to be very close, but they were going to go ahead and gamble and try to pick up a win. But now it's a moot point as they have changed right side tires. Dale Earnhardt pitting further down pit road, getting 4 tires there. They had a serious handling problem. The car very loose as left side tires going in on the Villa Genuine Draft Pontiac. Kyle Petty, meanwhile, pitting over the right side. Rusty Wallace's car jumps off the deck, and now he can't get the car going. The car will not go into gear. Rusty Wallace's car is still running, and it will not go into gear, and the crowd is going wild here.
Rusty Wallace has broke a transmission or a drive shaft or something. It just will not go.
Boy, all kinds of things happening here as Davey Allison was the leader. He's not going to win this race, and Rusty Wallace was very much a contention, and he isn't going to win this race.
Well, Davey still has a shot at it. As fast as his car is, he could get back in the lead lap, and then if he's fortunate enough to catch a caution, he still has an outside shot at it. But
and we see Kyle Petty in front of Dale Earnhardt. Did he only change 2 tires? Is that what happened?
Here is a replay of Davey Allison's problems.
Run along just fine, and then apparently the tire blew out right there coming off of turn 2.
And then the car continued over to the second corner, and Davey tried to cut down into his pit, and Alan Kulwicki was right there.
Well, Alan had already committed himself to go on the inside of Davey, and he tried to get out of it and get out of the way, but he just couldn't get it, and they touched a little bit, and Alan spun around.
And we see the hood up on Davey Allison's car when he made the pit stop that time. I don't know exactly what's that all about, but he's in that hood.
Let's go to Jerry Punch, who's with Rusty Wallace.
Rusty still sitting in the car here getting cooled off. Rusty, what happened out there? It looked like you were coming so hard.
Run perfect all day long. It's just that everything was buried today. The water temperature was 240. The oil temperature was 270. The transmission was 380. Just everything was too hot, and I burnt the transmission out of it in that last step. Man, I couldn't believe it. We had new tires on, getting ready to beat Earnhardt out of the pits and maybe win us the race. But we don't quit, but it's 2 weeks in a row, and that's tough to take.
A very dejected Rusty Wallace still sitting in the car. His Pontiac up on the jack stands. They're going to try to do the best they can to get the transmission fixed on the car, get him out to pick up some very valuable points. Meanwhile, the hood going back up on the Haviland Ford. Another tough break for Davey Allison as he has serious problems, and how quickly the complexion of a race can change. Gentlemen.
Davey Allison's broken the shock on the right front, and that's what moved over. It broke off, and that's what blew the right front tire. They have to get it out of the way. It's going to blow another right front tire.
Let's go to John Curtis.
What they've been doing on the right front, they've been trying to pinch off the brake line is what they've talked about. They had to refill, put some more brake fluid into the master cylinder, and they're trying to. The car, Beatty says, basically doesn't have any brakes right now, but he was able to bring it to a stop in the pits.
And on the back pits, Jeff Bodine, who was up in the top 5, is in. He just went a lap down. There's something wrong with the Budweiser Ford as we get ready to go green flag racing again. Brett Bodine has gotten back in the lead lap as a result of Davey Allison's problems. All kind of things going on.
I tell you, just within a space of about 5 laps, we've had 3 drivers drop from contention. Kyle Petty and Dale Earnhardt now are up front. And look at Earnhardt go to the outside of Kyle.
I believe Kyle Petty only put on right sides on that last pit stop. I may be wrong. We'll have to check and find out. But our cameras caught him sitting in the back pits, changing the right sides. Gary Nelson, the crew, chose to gamble. They could change 2 tires and stay in front. Let's see if that's going to work.
They are right together, side by side.
And this is for the lead, and Earnhardt has it.
Earnhardt got the lead, passing on the outside of Kyle Petty, and Dale Earnhardt goes back into the lead.
And Ned, there's 36 laps to go. Is Earnhardt's car going to last that long? We talked about he don't like long runs, so let's see.
Here's 3rd position, 5 of Rudd, the 17 of Waltrip. Darrell looking to the inside, coming down the straightaway, pulls back behind Ricky. He bumps him.
Boy, he is working on him, no question about it. Darrell knows that he has to go now. He can't wait around if he has been, and he's one of the best at sort of nursing a car and just staying there in contention and then going at the end. But he knows now is the time to go.
Gant not on the lead lap in the 33 car. Kyle Petty apparently did change all 4 tires. You see some smoke out of that box?
Yes, I did. I saw some smoke out of the Winston Cup point leader off that second corner.
I sure did too. It was pretty obvious as he came off the second corner.
And Darrell looks like did he slow down or did he just pull down to let Harry Gant go?
There you can see it again. There is definitely smoke coming off the left rear of that 5 car.
I think Darrell Waltrip has lost a cylinder. We'll see.
Wow. The crew chief on Dale Earnhardt's car, Kirk Shelmerdine, has been named the Western Auto Mechanic of the race. I believe he was 4th in the standings that we showed you a while ago, so he adds some more to that total. Kirk is the Western Auto mechanic of the race, and his driver, Dale Earnhardt, is leading the Haynes 500 with 25 laps to go. 475 are completed. Dale would be the first repeat winner of 1991 if he can hang on.
No question about fuel mileage or all that stuff. It's gone out the window now. And I mentioned just before we went on break that I thought Darrell Waltrip had lost a cylinder. I'm going to rephrase that. I don't think he has. He slowed down for a little bit, but he is back up to pretty good speed now, still running in the 4th position. So for his parents or anybody else that might be watching out there, didn't mean to alarm anybody, but he slowed down a little bit, but now he's going good again.
And Earnhardt's pulled out to a pretty good lead on Kyle Petty. There it comes Kyle. We see it. And there's Earnhardt.
Yeah, there are like 3 cars between Petty and Earnhardt right now. Let's go to John Kernan, who can tell us about that most recent pit stop by Kyle.
You want to talk about a smoker, how hot it is down here. It is hot in this pit right now because they smoked the pit stop. 20 seconds, almost 20 seconds flat for 4 tires. They said they just barely beat Dale Earnhardt out as he was coming down the backstretch as they exited the backside pits. That's incredible, 20 seconds for 4 tires.
On a warm and humid Sunday afternoon in late April here in Martinsville.
I wondered how in the world he got in front of Earnhardt, because Earnhardt pitted on the front, Kyle pitted on the back. I felt like that Earnhardt should be in front. But
the one thing that has made a little bit of difference on that is the fact that they don't rush down pit road like they used to now. They have to, and Earnhardt's pitted all the way down at the end of the pits towards turn 1, and he had to stay even with the pace car coming in there. And remember, he had dropped back to about 5th place before then, so he was not the first car in line to be coming down through there. So that's how it happened. That is a good point.
3.2 seconds separate first and second, Earnhardt and Kyle Petty. And for the first time this season, Earnhardt has earned the 5 bonus points for leading the most laps. Let's check it again. It was 3.2. Same thing this lap. 19 to go.
All right, there's the leader. Of course, Dale Earnhardt. We just saw Kyle Petty there in second.
And Rudd is off the pace. Rudd, the Winston Cup leader, off the pace down the back straightaway. There he is in turn 3.
Then he has been smoking. In fact, we were just about to lead back to him that there was some smoke coming from that Chevrolet, and apparently it is causing some internal problems for him. Let's see if he goes in the pits on the backstretch. Be a tough break for Ricky Rudd. No, he's going to stay out there and make as many laps as he can.
Just 19 laps away from the finish of the race. Rudd is going to fall out of the top 10.
Brett Woodine,
look at this
around him.
Joe Ruttman getting pushed out of the way by Rudd.
Now Brett finally gets around him for the position.
This is going to tighten the point standings up. Earnhardt wins this race. He was 97 behind Rudd when we went in.
Well, Rudd pulled up in the groove coming off of turn 2, and Hut Strickland gave him a little bit of a tap there.
Looks like the gear's gone on the car or something like that.
Well, there had been smoke coming from it.
Aha, now we may learn something about a brake problem, John. Could that be Rudd's problem?
Yeah, that's exactly right. He has gotten them really hot. I talked to Waddell Wilson a couple of minutes ago about the smoke. He said, oh, it's just some rubber up in the wheel well. Well, apparently it's very hot up in there at wheel well. In fact, the black flag has come out for Ricky Rudd, who has no brakes.
Well, that explains why he pushed Joe Ruttman aside. He didn't have a choice. There are no brakes on the car, and so that's what happened.
Now, NASCAR has black flagged him. Rudd can stay out 3 laps before he has to come in.
And then they will stop scoring.
And then they'll stop scoring him. Under these circumstances, he probably is better off to go ahead and get those 3 laps, because he might not be able to get back on the racetrack. At least he would be credited with finishing 489 laps instead of 486. It might make a difference of a position or 2.
But here he comes. He's entering on the backstretch.
Hoping that they can fix it or repair it enough that he can get back out there and make a few more laps.
But there are only 12 laps to go.
Trying to get to Jack, but they got to push him back in his pit.
Now they have it back in the pit.
Laps to go for Dale Earnhardt. He won at Richmond earlier this year. While we have a moment, are you a Richard Petty fan? Well, who isn't? Here's an opportunity for you to dial an 800 number and pick up on a video that pretty much documents the entire life of the great king of stock car racing, Richard Petty. The ride of a lifetime. The number dial is 1-800-342-3400. By dialing that number, you can get all the information on how to order that video. And there is King Richard Petty. And here in the late stages of this race, he is shown in 14th position, 5 laps down.
And there's Ricky Rudd, the leader, Winston Cup point leader, back on the racetrack. And here's the leader of the race, Dale Earnhardt. 9 laps to go. The 8th race of the year, the Haynes 500. This would be the first repeat winner.
And it would be Dale Earnhardt's 50th career Winston Cup win. And it will give him 5 victories here at Martinsville. There's second place Kyle Petty.
And do you know who that tie will tie him with 50 wins?
I got a good idea.
Junior Johnson.
I thought you had 50.
Well, I do, but I don't want you to mention that.
Thank you, Benny.
Earnhardt just made another lap.
Benny, you won here in 79. Remember that in the fall race? You did?
No, never did.
In 79?
I finally begged Clay for one of those grandfather clocks. He gave me one. Out of generosity of heart.
Here comes second place, and it looks like the interval is growing rather than decreasing. Earnhardt has moved through some traffic here in the recent laps, and Kyle Petty has some traffic to move through in the last 6 circuits. Coming down, this will be 495, and there'll be 5 more for Dale Earnhardt.
4 cars on the lead lap. Yes, they are Earnhardt, Kyle Petty, Darrell Waltrip, and Brett Bodine. Harry Gantnow's up in 5th place.
This would be Brett Bodine's best finish of the season should he remain in 4th spot. More laps to go.
There comes Kyle Petty. Darrell Waltrip, 3rd place car, just a second or so behind Kyle Petty.
Seems to be closing in a little.
You know, my hat's off to Earnhardt and the Goodwrench crew, because at times today it looked like that his car was not competitive with some of the other cars, but they had patience. They've adjusted on the pit stop. I noticed on the last pit stop, they took 3 rounds of bite out of the right rear. 3 rounds. And folks, with 25 laps to go, that's a huge gamble, but they took it, and it's paid off.
Laps to go.
There's our second place car. There's our leader. The Goodwrench Chevrolet of Dale Earnhardt. White flag this time.
1 more lap around this half-mile racetrack at Martinsville, Virginia for Dale Earnhardt, looking for his 50th career Winston Cup win. The tremendous crowd on hand this afternoon is on its feet. They're cheering for Dale as he brings the Goodwrench Chevrolet off of turn number 4, heads for the checkered flag, and there it is. Dale Earnhardt wins at Martinsville. Earnhardt takes the car to victory lane here at Martinsville on a warm Sunday afternoon and becomes the first repeat winner in Winston Cup competition. Let's go to John Curtin, who's with Richard Childress.
A very happy Richard Childress, I might add. 2nd win of the season, first repeat winners on the circuit this year.
Yeah, you know, we got a little bit off. We made an adjustment on the car there at the end, and Dale told us, you know,
kind of what it was doing. Kirk went in there and made some more changes, and it just worked good for us. You know, it was a great day for the Good Wrench Racing team.
When you made that major chassis adjustment there at the end, did you have any idea it was going to work, or was it just a calculated gamble?
Well, we knew we had went a little too far the time before, and so we knew we had to come back, and we come back a little bit beyond that, and it really worked good.
Well, these guys are really happy, I can tell you that right now. Second win of the year.
Indeed, Dale Earnhardt is on his way to victory lane. Let's go to Jerry Punch.
And he just turned that Goodrich Chevrolet off, Dale. Congratulations on a great effort.
Need my breath. Car ran good all day. We got off there a little bit on the chassis there close to the end, and you know, Davy's problems enabled us to stop and get some more tires and adjust this chassis. And this Jim Goodrich Chevrolet went to work then. Hey, man. Good job.
That was Kyle Petty, by the way, shooting water in Dale's face, congratulating. But, Dale, they said that you had a good luck charm today, and we talked to him. Your country music singing buddy came up here to bring you some luck.
Yeah, Deverett McClinton and Wendy came up, and T. Graham Brown sent us a little present today. And, you know, I'd like to wish all my friends and all, I appreciate the support. And, you know, it's just been super this year. We got down a little bit, and we've been working our way back now. Richard and all the guys, you know, David, he's getting better, and he's back jacking today. And, you know, everything's just turning around for us. You know, I'd like to say hi to Kelly and Kerry and Taylor back home. It's just a good day for us.
Well, it's about 8 hours away, but let us wish you a happy birthday.
It's a good birthday present today.
Dale Earnhardt will be 39 years old tomorrow, and of course he celebrates in grand style in Victory Lane. Bob?
Kyle Petty finishes second, followed by Darrell Waltrip, Brett Bodine, and Harry Gant, the top five. 6 through 10, Jimmy Spencer, Michael Waltrip, Davey Allison, Alan Kowicki, and Hut Strickland finishes 10th in the Haynes 500. There you see 11 through 15. Now, as far as the Winston Cup points are concerned, Ricky Rudd will go to Talladega with a 42-point advantage on Dale Earnhardt. Don't forget, next weekend, the Winston 500 from Talladega. For Benny Parsons, Ned Jarrett, John Kernan, and Dr. Jerry Punch, this is Bob Jenkins. So long, everyone.